And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
All right, attention to roll call. Marlon's getting transferred. Eric's transferred, and I'm transferred also. So
we don't. It's not for body worn cameras. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time, and of course, it is bright. It is early. It is 4:05 for me in the 49 states of Alaska. We're a little late. We apologize, but sometimes it's better late than never. Give us some discipline. Honestly, dude, I am disgusted by what I've been seeing. The politicization of a police funeral is absolutely disgusting. My heart goes out to the family of Officer Diderot Islam. May he rest in peace. But I'm so sorry that his family has to be put through this. And I hope that unfortunately this politicization of the death and the murder of Officer Islam is not being noticed by the family right now. I hope it's going over their eyes right now, because this is just terrible. Good morning, guys. Your Friday roundtable. Let's get it going. John.
Listen, the whole funeral process, I think, with the exception of Jessica Tisch, was completely politicized. You know, the governor comes there. She's actually probably much less political than the rest of them. Eric Adams makes it about him, about his feelings, about what if this was my son. His same old tired ass speech that, you know, just shows he doesn't care about it. And then the Imam gets up and he politicizes the whole thing, and he's bringing in the Israeli-Palestine conflict. And I'm like, what the hell are we doing here? You know, and then you go online today and you see this maniac, Laura Luma, and she's saying that, look at these women pandering to Muslims by wearing hijab over one dead cop. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is, you know, there's a big problem in this country right now, and there's a lot of hate, and there's a lot of religious zealotry going on, and it needs to stop immediately. Honestly, you want to have a Middle Eastern conflict on the streets of New York City, and in New York City, you get your asses into the Middle East. All you pro-Israeli, all you pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, get your asses, go over to the Middle East. Nobody wants to hear. In this country, we have the right to religious freedom. In this country, we respect people's religions. We don't care. Christian. This nation was a Christian nation, so let's get that straight. It was a Christian nation, and it was founded on Christian beliefs. But the main factor in this country was religious freedom, meaning you have the right to believe and think what you want to, but you don't get the right to force it on me, right? But going to a funeral and paying homage to an officer whose religion, where it's customary for women to cover their heads, is not a sign of taking a knee. It's a sign of respect and homage for that officer. They went there to pay respect to that officer, and anybody that has a problem with it, you're the problem. You're disgusting. You're using identity politics. That absolutely infuriated me watching that. Watching people trying to politicize, and let's get something straight here. This didn't just start. I mean, politicians have been campaigning on the backs of NYPD cops, on dead cops, on cops who've committed suicide, when they're the direct result of these people committing suicide and the direct result of getting these cops killed. And they've been campaigning on the NYPD's backs forever. So this isn't something new, but now we're bringing overseas conflicts into it as well. Absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. Good morning, guys. Apologize for the technical problems and my terrible camera again. It's just one of those mornings, you know. But yeah, it's kind of somber here in New York City. You know, we're still in the shadow of the tragic passing of Detective Islam. And, you know, my condolences go out to the family and to the, you know, his colleagues in the 4-7. Yeah, I saw the funeral too yesterday, and I gotta say, I after watching it, I think politicians shouldn't even be at MOS funerals. You know, it's bad enough that I couldn't imagine those kids are gonna now have to spend the rest of their lives without a father. You know, and that's it's so time. You know, but to have all these politicians grandstanding and like pass around his passing as a kind of like a political football, you know. It was a mess, and I really think that these funerals should be reserved for the families, for the colleagues, and for the cops. The PC should be there, but I just don't believe anymore that these politicians should be there. I mean, what's Hochul doing there? What has she done for cops? You know what? I mean, I even get it. I'll even say, okay, the mayor, he's the mayor of the city. I get it. But what's Hochul doing that? What has she got to do with us? You know, what has she helped? How has she helped the lives of New York City police officers? You know, how has she made it? How has she made the job easier for law enforcement in the state? You know, but yet you want to grandstand and you know, spout useless platitudes on the sermon, you know. So I agree with John. I also didn't even know Laura Loomer said what she said, but I noticed there's a lot of influencers who are online repeating the same things she's saying, and it's disgusting. So, but yeah, gonna have an interesting chat today, and we're gonna have an interesting conversation. So let's get on in it.
You know, honestly, I'm just at this point, I'm disgusted by all this. A police funeral should be ultimately about reflection. It should be about honoring the lives of police officers, the sacrifices that they give, and what it is to embody the law enforcement profession. So here's a good question, right? And this is for everyone in the chat, and this is for us also. Should a police funeral be in the spotlight? Now, I'm going to answer my own question. And to me, the answer is yes. A police funeral should be in the spotlight, but not for politicians. It should be in the spotlight for cops. It shouldn't be a spotlight for executives only. It should be in the spotlight for the cops, the boots on the ground, the police officers in the law enforcement profession that carry the burden every day. And that's why we need true leadership. And I'm going back to the schedule that I had seen for the viewing and for the funeral, and how it said first floor executives, friends, and family only. And I said, wow, isn't it amazing? It's almost like mixing oil and vinegar. We're putting executives with friends and family. True leadership would be the executives taking a step back and saying, let's make sure that the people closest to Officer General Islam are present, that they get an opportunity to have that reflection. But instead, we have politicians, exactly what you said, Marlon, grandstand, so they can take that as a moment, an opportunity to electioneer and to put themselves on a soapbox. It's absolutely disgusting, and it's disheartening. And every cop should take this moment and sit back and say, wow, God forbid, what if that was me? How would my family feel? How would I feel that in the afterlife, that my family is being used and abused and not have the opportunity to really grieve and reflect upon my murder, or God forbid in that case. And I've always said it, I would not want those politicians there. It's amazing how these same politicians that have driven this bias and disdain towards policing, this motive to abolish the same law enforcement profession, that they now honor this cop. It's sad. It's disgusting. It should hurt every cop And so I ask you guys that question. Should a funeral be in the spotlight? And I'd say yes, but for the cops, for reflection, not for politicians.
I mean, obviously, the police funeral should be in the spotlight. I mean, but it's there to honor the life of the police officer, right? Like, what's a funeral for? Is a funeral for you to grieve? It's for the family to grieve. It's for the wife to grieve. It's for the loved ones to grieve. But a funeral is a sign of remembrance of the person. It's not a time to show who has a bigger dick in the police department. It's not a time for these executives to puff their chest out. Oh, I'm going to get in the front row and right next to Kaz Daughtry. Like, why is Kaz Daughtry even in the front row? Why is he even there? Did he know Officer Islam? Why? Now I'll go take it further. Why is Eric Adams there? Why was Bill de Blasio at any of our funerals? What have they done for the police? I see the post yesterday talking about the hypocrisy of Mondani, who sent a tweet about defunding the police, but nothing about Eric Adams, who actually defunded the police, who actually lowered the headcount, who actually made it more dangerous for Officer Islam to go to work, who actually put him in the situation. Why should the mayor be there? Why should he be there? Why is he there? He's campaigning. Why is Kathy Hochul there? She's campaigning. Why are all these loser executives vying for position in front rows or to get closest to the church or in the front line? For political purposes. They're campaigning too. Look at me, Chief. Look at me. I would look great up here with the stars, right? And honestly, I haven't seen anything from any of these executives. I think that's pathetic display. Pathetic display. Honestly, the only one I see with any type of professionalism isn't even a cop. She's a billionaire heiress. She's the only one I see that actually cares. She's the only one I see that is professional. I mean, I didn't see one person that had compassion there. I just didn't. I'm sorry. Like, I haven't. I've listened to every single interview Kaz Daughtry, John Schell, and Eric Adams have done, and it all appears fake to me. The whole entire thing. I've also listened to everything that Jessica Tisch has done, and it feels sincere. And so, yeah, she might suck at a lot of things. She's definitely not going to be perfect. But I'm a much bigger fan of her than I am of the entire rest of this administration. I think that they're complete losers. I think that everything that we've been seeing is a politicization of cops. Everybody rides cops in death. And in life, they stand on your damn shoulders and they ride you to their promotion, to their self-glory, to get me back to the seat of the mayor, to get me to be the governor in 2026, to get me that one star, to get me that stupid little bird on my shoulder. I mean, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Sonny was right. Nobody cares.
Yeah, I'm gonna give kudos to her as well. I thought her speech was very heartfelt. And out of all the speeches, given by the public officials, I thought hers was the most heartfelt. And the others, I think those speeches could have been anything really, But in fact, I actually thought that at some point she may need help to get through the speech because she seemed like it was really starting to hit her. And I suppose. Yeah, I think this is her first line of duty funeral as the PC. So I think that might be getting to her. Yeah. So the other speeches, like I said, I thought they were cookie cutter, and I didn't think there was any real emotion to it, and that includes Patrick Henry. Like that. I think it's time to get I know public speaking ain't easy, Patrick. Trust me, but as a PBA head, I think it's time that you hired a coach, and I also think you need to learn how to salute. By the way, from that picture I saw on the paper, but yeah, I think the grandstanding that goes on in his funeral is just it's just terrible. It's terrible for the families to have to go through this and to seem like an afterthought in the proceedings for the death of their own loved one, And I think, but to Eric's point, I kind of have to wonder if these politicians didn't have the ability to grandstand at department funerals, if we'd even have such large funerals, because I mean, the city, we've said before, the city doesn't really care about you. You're a number, and you got to think, if they didn't have the ability to politicize these funerals, if they would allow the resources like the helicopter to do a flyby, or just have all these personnel there, if they would even care. Because I have my doubts. Maybe it's just me being cynical, but I have my doubts whether it would be, if they would even give that to us, So.
Well, I want to say this, right? The funeral deserves spotlight for reflection. It's about sacrifice. It's about sacrifice of the law enforcement profession. And so I think when it comes to politicians, if you really care, this is not a campaign rally. This is a funeral of a murdered police officer, which is a reflection of society. It's an indication of what police officers do every day to uphold this amazing society that we have of being an American. And I think that if they really, truly care, this is not a political rally. If you want a podium, book a press conference, and then have your campaign rally, but not for a funeral. I think, ultimately, if politicians really care, I think they should show up, bow their heads, shut up, and honor the police officer. That's what they should do. I have no problem if they show up, but keep your mouth shut. Why do they need to speak? That's my point. If they really cared, why can't they just show up and bow their heads and pray? Why do they need to speak? It's not a podium for a campaign rally. It's not a podium where we're going to bring up legislation. It's not a podium that we're going to talk about the possible next mayor. It's not a podium that we're going to talk about what's going on in Israel or anti-Semitism here. It's a moment where we bow our heads and we truly embody and feel the death and the murder of a police officer that is the spirit of New York City or any city in this entire country. So that's my thoughts. Show up, bow your head, and shut up, and show honor and reflection. Why do they need to be heard? You should be seen and not heard at a funeral.
Yeah, I mean, I never even thought about that, Marlon. That's a great point. Like, would they really fund these funerals? Would they really have these big turnouts if they didn't get a chance to go up there and grandstand? Because obviously, taxpayer money is for them, right? It's not for us. It's not for our family. It's not for our kids, right? It's for them, right? I mean, so I think you're right. I think if they weren't able to speak at that, you'd see nobody there. You might not even see Pat Henry there. He might not even spiked up his 3 hairs that he has on his head. Might not even put gel in it that day.
And you know what, John? That's the sad truth. That is the sad truth about this. So, Marlon, you brought up a fantastic point because it really makes you think. Just the fact that you even had to pose that question means they don't care.
No, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's disgusting, and So let's go on the first speech. Let's see the governor who said you got racist in 2020, like Eric Adams did, wanted to defund you, didn't believe we need police resources, wanted to take it. Let's see what she had to say at this officer's funeral.
And that is the NYPD. We should not just think of them in times when they lose a brother or sister. They should be in our hearts and minds with a sense of gratitude for individuals like Officer Islam, who came to this country to give his family a better life. Could have gone into any profession, anything. He was smart, he was engaging, he was friendly, people liked him. He had such great personality. And yet he chose a profession that is dangerous, requires sacrifice, long hours away, and ultimately willing to be prepared to lose his life to save the lives of others. The Quran says, whoever saves a life, it is as if they saved all of humanity. This officer saved lives. He was out front. Others may be live today because he was the barrier, unexpectedly, but he was there. He was there to protect the people in that building, as well as his daily duties, starting at 6:30 a.m. at Precinct 47, where I was yesterday, looking in the eyes of his brothers and sisters who now go on without him. The residents of this city, and indeed this state, must show greater platitudes and gratitude toward our police force. They have not received enough in years of late, in my opinion, and that must be rectified. They need our support. As I spoke to the family, I was asked one thing for the young widow. She just said, pray for us. Pray for us. The mayor and I were at a prayer vigil with the commissioner, and I want to thank both of them for their incredible leadership during this time when this city is reeling in pain. But you're helping us heal, and I so appreciate that. And to Pat Henry, I've had too many calls with him, giving condolences, which seem so hollow. But he is a pillar of strength to the men and women he represents. We continue to support him. I'll close with this. You're not alone. Sometimes it seems so incredibly sad and overwhelming. But this is the time when New Yorkers rise up. We've been knocked down so many times, whether it's the individual loss of a life, 4 lives shattered, or large-scale mass tragedies. We always come back. That is our strength. And we pray to God today, the prayers being prayed in this place, that others can heal. Others will join this family in their mourning, but to celebrate a life well lived. On behalf of 20 million New Yorkers, I want to bring the condolence of your entire family, your extended family. We are there for you. Thank you very much.
Anybody believe her? Because I don't. She was at Precinct 47 yesterday. What New Yorker refers to any NYPD precinct as Precinct 47, Precinct 44, Precinct 1, 2, 3? Nobody. No, it's. I was at the 44th precinct yesterday. She doesn't even like. That's how detached these people are, and that was the most heartless, cold, horrible speech. Honestly, she should fire her speechwriter because it should have just even been a little bit better. I was at Precinct 47 yesterday. Lady doesn't give a shit about any of you. Absolutely disgraceful. Do you believe that she doesn't even look up? She doesn't even look upset. Like she doesn't even really care. Oh, we're New Yorkers. We're resilient. We're resilient. Remember when she replaced her cross with the Vax necklace, and Eric Adams, the Menklet wearing guy, he was celebrating. He's like, "Oh, I should get one for my earring." Losers.
Yeah.
Let's be real. The second those cameras showed up, the second the podium was ready, and the second the mics were available, politics kicked in. And in my opinion, the only sounds I want to hear at a funeral is the sounds of the family, sounds of the bagpipes, and the sounds of the feet of police officers marching in and at that mosque and leaving that mosque. That's the only sounds we should hear, because it should be about the sacrifice of the family. But this is just complete orchestrated written speech, and it's not leadership. It's just opportunist moment for politicians. It's grandstanding. It's all the things that we've been talking about, but none of it is heartfelt. She says, "Oh, we'll be there for you." Just as John and I say all the time, and Marlon says it too. Why are we there in death? Why are we there not in life? Because, as we said on this podcast, before she was grandstanding about Pat Henry, Pat Lynch was the PBA president. And $50,000 was donated to Kathy Hochul, supposedly to have certain proposal bills passed in Albany. and those bills were not passed. She took the $50,000, and those bills were never passed. So that was an opportunity to support cops in life, but now we support them in death. And if we do, how do we support those cops? And sure enough, listen as we go in a few months, we will hear more defund the police, more legislation to strip away from the police, and this will all be forgotten. And as I said before, let's be real. The second those mics come on, so does politics. It's absolutely disgusting. Again, I hope the chat agrees, friends and listeners. I think the politicians, if they really cared, should show up, bow their heads, and shut up.
Yeah, I agree. John took the words right out of my mouth, And Logic's Finest in the chat says to John, Eric, and Marlon, why do families allow the NYPD and politicians to have these podiums at funerals for fallen officers? Is there some unwritten rule that lets it happen? Well, I think a lot of families aren't as plugged into the politics as maybe their family members who are on the force are. A lot of families don't know, and a lot of families take it as an honor for these politicians to take the time out of their days to attend their loved one's funeral. They think it's an honor, but the problem is that people think the best of these politicians. They think these politicians actually care about it's just the way. I think it's just human nature, because a lot of cops come from great families that believe in public service and helping people, and so people tend to think politicians are like that. Even when they think politicians are corrupt, you just don't fathom that they're that corrupt. First you think, oh, maybe it's a mistake, maybe this happened, maybe that happened. They don't fathom how corrupt and immoral these guys are. So I think that's what happens, and I think the entire process is it just consumes the entire event, and I think in a lot of ways the public expectation that these politicians be there also is one of the problems, because Hochul looks like she doesn't even want to be there. Okay. And the problem is that if she didn't show up, other politicians may make it a campaign issue or some grievance against her. But the thing is, she doesn't really want to be there, and she's giving off the vibes that she doesn't even know anything about. I mean, like John said, she calls it the precinct 47. I mean, come on. I mean, what boggles my mind about that is that about the governor spends most of her time in New York City. Okay, they spend a lot of time in New York City. So how could you be so detached that you don't even understand the local colloquialisms? So I think that the process, these funerals kind of it just consumes the process, kind of consumes the event, and I think that's a problem. And again, as we've seen from the grandstanding that took place here, I think it gets too far away from why they're there. We're there to honor the memory of the officer and to honor his life of service and being an NYPD cop, and it went well past that there, and he was almost an afterthought there, and that is like infuriating to watch, and it should not. These things should not, going forward, this should not happen at a cop's funeral. It just can't happen anymore. It's terrible.
Well, the other thing, if you guys don't know or haven't been watching, if you watch what happens when a police officer dies, is their widow is used as a political pawn in the next few months, in the next few years, and then you never hear about them again. And, so like, why are they there? Why are they? It's because, honestly, let's call it what it is. The unions have put pressure on the families. The unions put pressure on the families to have these people at the funeral, to allow them to speak. A lot of families recently did not want politicians speaking at their funeral, did not want Eric Adams speaking at the funeral, did not want Kathy Hochul. And they did it by pressure by way of their union. Because the union's like, oh, we're going to be there for you. And you got to think about it. Like I said, if you're a police commissioner and you're sleeping with a cop's wife that just got murdered, you're taking advantage of a widow in her most vulnerable time. She's left there. Her husband's gone. Her kids are gone. Not only is she emotionally robbed, she's robbed financially. Her future, her plans, everything is stripped from her. And you're taking advantage of someone at their weakest moment. And that's exactly what you see here. And it's not just the politicians, it's the unions that are allowing this, and that's why I'm like, something needs to change. Should the politicians be there? Absolutely, they should. Standing in the back, in the way back with the executives where they are while the radio's going off all day long. Go in the back, go in your nice air-conditioned car, sit there, don't stand out on the footpost. Don't stand out too long. We don't want anybody to pass out, right? Stand in the way back. Get wet a little, stand in the rain. If you really cared, you wouldn't want to be on that podium. If you really cared, you'd be like, no, I want someone that is going to give a heartfelt speech. Was his partner there? I want to hear, I want to hear the people that matter in that person's life. Should the police commissioner speak? Absolutely. Should the speech be political? No. I don't think it was. Should his priest or his imam or his rabbi speak? Absolutely. Should the speech be political? No, it shouldn't. But it was. But that person actually has a right to speak at that event. That's the church he went to. That's the person he listened to. So I'll go further. I'll put Adams on, Eric. Here's the illustrious mayor of New York City. Let's hear his heartfelt speech.
Thank you, Madam Governor. I'd now like to invite up the mayor of the city of New York, the Honorable Eric Adams.
I want to first acknowledge in the room today those electeds that I saw, starting with our Bronx Borough President, Mr. Gibson, our District Attorney, Darcel Clark, our Public Advocate, Jamani Williams, our Congressman Espaillat, I'm not sure if I'm missing one. Congressman Richie Torres is here. Our Councilman Yusef Salon, that's here as well. And I apologize if I'm missing any name of any of the elected here in a unified way. We are here to show our support to this family. And I'm not here as the mayor. I'm here as a parent, as a father. And when I visited Officer Islam's dad yesterday, I could only reflect on the birth of Jordan. I remember being in the delivery room when he came through his mother's birth canal. And when I saw his head for the first time, and the doctor moved to allow and assist in the birth, I moved her hand away, and I touched my son's head because I wanted to be the first person to touch my son when he entered into life. And I thought about that when I sat on the couch yesterday. That many people don't fully understand. If you have never been a parent, you don't fully understand the relationship between a parent and a child. And throughout my life, of my son's 29 years of life, I only hope that one day he will have the honor to bury me as his dad. Because sons are supposed to bury their dads. Mothers are supposed to be buried by their daughters and their children. There is nothing more tragic than having a parent bury their child. The pain is so immense. It is so intense. And we think about it over and over again just in these 3.5 years as being the mayor. The times I had to attend funerals of the public at large, but specifically law enforcement officers, Detective Dillard, Officer Mora, and Rivera, of hearing the cries of their families and loved ones, trying to find words that could properly define how we're feeling the pain of what we've lost. This murder and the murder of others who were in the building, it cut me to my core. Spent my entire life defending and fighting for the innocent people of this city. And each death I take personal, because as the mayor, I am responsible for the safety of New Yorkers. That is my obligation, and that is my most basic function. And for someone to drive across our country carrying an automatic weapon and taking the lives of innocent people, you ask yourself over and over again, what more could we have done? How could we have responded better? And you have a tendency to blame yourself. And I just want to say sorry to this family. I want to say sorry as one parent to another parent. And we must live in the spirit of Officer Islam and what he stood for and what he would always stand for and what he fought for. And I want to say thank you to the men and women of the New York City Police Department in general, but specifically to the men and women of SRG. They entered the building while the shooter was still alive, and they conducted a floor-by-floor search. They wanted to ensure that everyone in that building would have come out safely, and the men and women of ESU, and the men and women who responded and carried out your son out of that building, hoping to give him the medical care that he deserved to save his life. I want to thank those of Rudin Management who did everything possible to create a safe environment, unfortunately, in a system where we are now having to train each other on how not to be the victim of senseless violence. And I want to thank the men and women of the 4-7 precinct. In spite of what happened, they put on a uniform the next day. They carried out their jobs and their obligations and their responsibility to protect the people of this city. And I want to thank New Yorkers, the number of calls and communications that we received to stand in unison with this family and this city as we heal together. And I want to thank you, Governor, Governor of the state of New York, your leadership during these trying times of making sure our police officers and our families receive the support they need to carry out their job. And to you, Police Commissioner, for what you have served this family, not using the terminology that we are family, then we abandon each other during times of need, but the services that you have provided for this family during these difficult times is admirable in the spirit of who we stand for as men and women of the New York City Police Department in the city of New York. This is a law enforcement family, a law enforcement family. The cousins are part of the law enforcement community. They believe in public safety. They came here pursuing the American dream, a Bangladesh community that has grown in power and strength. And as the governor stated, he could have gone into any other occupation he wanted, but he wanted to put on that uniform, and he wanted to protect fellow New Yorkers, and he wanted to let us know that he believed in what this city and what this country stood for. That's the greatest symbol of what we know we are as a country. So as the mayor of the city of New York, yes, I'm angry. I'm angry that a dad has lost his son, that a mother has lost her child. I'm angry that two boys are not going to grow up and be with their father, to go and learn the power of the Quran. I'm angry that a child that's on the way is not going to have the opportunity to let his dad touch his head as he exits the womb. I'm angry that this community has watched one of their own leave our city prematurely. I'm angry. The men and women of the police department are watching a fallen brother who died as a hero defending this city. But in all that anger, I also have hope. I have hope because of who Officer Islam was. I have hope that we still have in our city men and women coming from different walks of life, deciding that they want to wear that blue uniform and fight to protect our city from those who wish to harm us. I have hope that if we're in this room together in this mosque, lifting up our hero, then we could enter the mosques, the synagogues, the churches, the Buddhist temples, the Sikh temples, and also cross-pollinate and coordinate on how we can make this city a greater place that a person would not believe violence is an answer to the question. I'm filled with hope and optimism today because of the life of Officer Islam. And I commend mother and father of our officer. They instilled something special in him. Everyone we talked about, they talked about how special he was and what he represented. If we are true practitioners of the faith that we have embraced, then we should see God in each other. We saw God in Officer Islam. And now we must take that God-like energy that he offered to allow us to live out his legacy the way he would want to. Our hearts lift him up in prayer. Our city is with you. As one parent to another, I will continue to pray for you and your family, his mother, his wife, his children, his child on the way. And as the Quran states, we come from Allah, we return to Allah. I've learned not to question God. I learned to respect God. And may God be with you.
First of all, Mayor Eric Adams, not Zohran Mamdani. Let's not forget, who is the mayor? Eric Adams. And 6 months left, still is the mayor. So let's not talk about Zohran Mamdani. Let's talk about Mayor Eric Adams. Mayor Eric Adams turned that funeral into a stage to tell his own story and to politicize himself and to grandstand his political career. That's what he did. The only thing we should be talking about is Officer Islam and Officer Islam only. This is an opportunity to talk about the sacrifice of Officer Islam honor his legacy, and honor him. We should hear nothing else. Nothing about Eric Adams, nothing about his family, nothing about DEI, nothing about how the police incident went down, nothing about SRG, nothing about the police response. This should be about Officer Islam, and that's it. Now, going back to what we said earlier in the go-around, Rob Lukesh had made a great comment here. The family is vulnerable. And I can tell you this, someone who lost their son is you're in a time of extreme weakness and vulnerability. If someone would have told me, listen, you could pay $1 million, you got to fly to this place to pick up a pill, and it's going to help your son, I would have done it. So this family is extremely vulnerable. The politicians are swarming them right now and telling them what needs to be done. They're in a time of desperation and vulnerability. So, of course, they're going to do it. So that's why I say most likely I don't think police officers have that conversation with their family. God forbid I lost my life in the line of duty. What would I want my funeral to look like? And I think it's unfortunate. It's a scary thing, but I think we need to have those conversations. And again, I think they should show up and shut up. Show up, shut up. Show up, shut up, and bow your heads. And you know what? To the executives, to the weak executives of the NYPD, we've seen Terrence Monahan take a knee. And we've seen many chiefs take a knee, literally and figuratively speaking. This would be the only appropriate time for you to get down on your knee and say, you know what, Officer Islam, we love you and we failed you. And that's why we take a knee. This is the only time. That is disgusting. He turned that funeral into his own political stage. I didn't see a tear. I didn't see a sense of emotion. It was so cold. Look at his body language. He could care less. And you know what's sad about this? I'm going to give you the hard truth. In 5 years from now, maybe it's less, God forbid, a family member of Officer Islam gets a parking ticket or some kind of ticket. They're going to pick up the phone. And they're going to call One Police Plaza and say, hey, I got this ticket. My cousin was killed in the line of duty. Can you help me? They go, who? Who? Officer who? Yeah, that's what happens. This is the harsh reality. They could care less. The second they walked out of there, they don't even remember his name. They don't remember anything about the family. They turned that stage they politicized it. It wasn't politicized because of the media. The politicians, they politicized it, and they grandstand and turned the stage into their own story. Disgusting.
Yeah, really, we shouldn't really be surprised at any of this, to be honest, because, the same pattern happens all the time. You get politicians grandstanding, you get a week of talking to media, then 2 weeks later, nobody remembers any of this. Nothing changes, and no one looks at this event and thinks of ways that we could prevent it from happening again. Nothing changes. I mean, something I was thinking about this morning as I was looking at my notes from the speech. I'm like, I was thinking about Lou and Ramos again. Their passing is like one of those, in my career, that's one of those seminal events that kind of changed how I looked at patrol. How I looked at my safety when I was on patrol. So what I thought is lately I haven't seen RMPs with the plating on them, and I'm starting to think, wait a second, are they no longer putting the plating on those vehicles anymore? I mean, think of it. They was taught that the department was focused on making sure that what happened to them didn't happen again, and here we are. It's like it's all forgotten, and we're back to business as usual. So again, my point is that this happens all the time, and we keep it's rinse and repeat, and they care about you for that week for the week of your passing, and then they forget all about you. And caring about you means not just helping your families cope with what's happening and the tragedy, but it also means helping your colleagues to not have to go through the same tragedy. Okay. And if Eric Adams actually cared about you, if Kathy Hochul actually cared about cops, they would have done everything in their power to make sure that these events of the past don't repeat themselves, and that cops get the resources they need. And what's the one resource we keep talking about that the department needs right now? It needs more cops. Okay, more cops. Okay. And when Eric Adams talks about SRG here, he's not talking about him because he actually cares. Okay, he's talking about him because safety is his political platform, right? Public safety. And when you have a public safety failure like this, it reflects badly on him. So even at the officer's funeral, he is trying to campaign, and he's trying to shape the narrative in favor of him, and it's terrible.
Totally disgusting. I mean, the guy should be in jail. That's besides the point. But he gets up there and he says, I'm not here as the mayor. You're right. You're here as a candidate, because obviously you're not giving a eulogy as a mayor normally does. You're 100% right, Eric. You were not there as the mayor. You were there as a political candidate vying for his political life. Barely mentions Officer Didero Islam's name. Barely mentions it. Doesn't touch on his career. Doesn't touch on his life. Doesn't touch on his assignment. Doesn't touch on what he was doing that day. Doesn't touch on what the thousands and thousands of New York City officers do every day. No. What does he tell you about? Touching his son's head when it was coming out of the birth canal. Right? What are you even talking about, dude? Like, he's acting like he's at a press conference, jibber jabbering, just saying words to deflect from getting any questions thrown at him. Like, it was the most heartless speech I've ever heard. Honestly, he should have got booed off the stage. Get this guy off. All right, you're done. All right, yeah. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Go have a seat in the back. Actually, go outside in the rain with the cops. Get out of here. Because it was disgusting, dude. Honestly, that whole thing was terrible to listen to. I know everybody was like, "Oh, take it down." Believe me, I want to, but you guys got to hear it. You guys got to hear it. Because, for something like, we're myth building Eric Adams here. We're pretending like this guy isn't the failure that he is. We're pretending like blood isn't on his hands. That's what we're pretending like, and I'm going to take it back to something. And I think a lot of people forgot, because I don't forget it. I remember being forced out of my career, being in Florida, listening to the funerals of two cops who were assassinated, right? Rivera and Mora, assassinated right as he took office. And he went out there and he touched the hearse. And I remember being like, damn, why am I not there? Why am I not still on this job? And I remember I was like sitting and hiding in my garage because I didn't want my wife to see me. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching him touch the thing. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe he's gonna repent on all this stuff, and all this will be temporary, and I'll go back to work. And then right after that funeral, a few days later, he terminated Marlon and a bunch of other people. While I sat there and I heard Keechant Sewell talk about honoring cops, and I talk about him and how he cared, and how if it was his son, it was almost the same speech. It was almost the same exact speech. It was almost the same speech. And I'm like, this guy is so full of garbage. And that's when I started on my Twitter rants. Because I'm like, wait a minute, you honor cops? You fired Marlon Bethel? You fired cops just like him? You got rid of me? You got rid of all these people for what? You honor us? These guys are full of crap. That's who Eric Adams is. Yeah. Oh, well, I think Mondani's going to be worse. Yeah, no shit. Does that mean that we should keep this loser in office? No shit. I don't even want to have this conversation with people anymore. Zohran Mondani is not the mayor of New York City. Zohran Mondani is a useless assemblyman who votes on nothing in a one-party state in New York. He has done nothing so far. Nothing. Oh, his words are inflammatory. Yeah, his words are actually policy that Eric Adams has used. Defund the police mayor, a mayor who said this police force was racist, a mayor who said we should take funds away from the police department and give it to dyslexia screening, a mayor who wanted to lower the headcount of the NYPD, a mayor who weeks before October 7th said that he was going to get rid of CRC and the SRG. Weeks. And guess what? Guess what? He did. He's defunding them. He's defunding them through attrition. CRC under Eric Adams in 2023, 500 people. CRC currently under Eric Adams, 150. You worried about Zohran Mondani? Oh, Zohran Mondani's going to get rid of the 150. Yeah, you don't think Eric Adams is? He just hasn't got there yet. Vote him into office. Watch who he's going to be. Watch who he's going to do. And we'll see all the scandals we'll talk about. But, I put out a tweet yesterday, and I knew it would piss everybody off, and I put it on my Instagram too. I said, I'm a big fan of Jessica Tisch. I am. You know what made me a big fan of her? I listened to this.
Thank you, Mayor Adams. I'd now like to invite up the Police Commissioner of the City of New York, the Honorable Jessica S. Tisch.
Salam alaikum. To the people of Parkchester, to Imam Maulana Muhammad Mainul Islam, and the entire Parkchester Jameh Masjid family, thank you for your graciousness, for your compassion, and for welcoming us into your community. Governor Hochul, Mayor Adams, thank you for being here with us. To Jamila, Ayan, and Azan, to Muhammad and Manara, to Naima and Nadima, to all extended family and friends, to police officers from the 4-7 precinct across the department and around the nation, and to every person mourning with us today. On behalf of the entire New York City Police Department, I extend to you my deepest and most sincere condolences. 3 days ago, time was moving fast for Didarul Islam. His 2 young boys were growing quickly, getting bigger and more independent every day. And in just a few weeks, another blessing was on the way. His sons were eager to meet their new baby brother, to teach him and to keep him safe. But of course, Didar would be there to help with all that. After all, he was a New York City cop, and protecting people was what he did, so his boys, they wouldn't have to grow up too fast. Their Baba would be there. And then, in one shattering, incomprehensible instant, time stopped. A killer on a self-centered, senseless crusade of violence took the lives of 4 innocent New Yorkers. He tore a father from his children, a husband from his wife, a son from his family, and in that moment, he ripped the world away from everyone who knew and loved NYPD police officer Didarul Islam. He was a son of 2 cities, born in Sylhet, Bangladesh, called to New York at the age of 20 by the promise of a better life. And he would build that life and fulfill that promise through service. He joined the NYPD first as a school safety agent in 2019 and became a police officer 2 years later. In his own words, the police were a blanket of the community, there to provide comfort and care. And when he joined this department, he made that his personal responsibility. But it was the man beneath the shield, steady in spirit, generous in presence, who left the deeper imprint. No one saw that more clearly than his partner, Pablo. At first, Didar was rotating through partners like most New York City cops do, but despite everything that set them apart, he and Pablo found something that brought them together. Pablo was from the Dominican Republic. He was raising 2 daughters. Didar was from Bangladesh, raising 2 sons. 2 journeys, 2 traditions, 2 lives shaped continents apart. Yet here in this city, they found a bond as strong as family, a connection born of faith, carried by trust, and rooted in the values that they both lived by. And that is the most New York story there is, because only in this city do 2 people from opposite ends of the earth end up in the same RMP, watching each other's backs. Only in this city do those differences become strength. Only in this city does a partnership like that feel not just possible, but inevitable. Pablo put it so simply: Everything you can ask for in a partner, he was just that. But as much as this job meant to Didar, his true measure was found in the beautiful life that he built beyond it. He talked often about his wife, his kids, his mortgage, as reminders of what he was working for. And he never stopped working for them. 12-hour tours in a busy precinct, extra shifts, paid details. Last Sunday, he was out at the Dominican Day Parade working more than a full tour. And on Monday, the day that he was killed, he picked up work at 345 Park Avenue to bring home just a little more. Because that's who he was. He didn't look for an easier way. He just showed up and he did the work. There's a quiet dignity to that. A quiet dignity. Everything for him was about building something for his family, for his mosque, for his adopted city, and for his relatives back in Bangladesh. They were all in his care, and he found peace in watching them grow. Didar came to this country with that purpose already alive in him. A sense of duty shaped by the belief that real meaning is found not in what we take from the world, but in what we give back. He stepped into a new land and chose to become part of its promise, to believe in its dream. And he did believe in the American dream, not as something handed down, but as something built with your own hands. He may not be here to see that dream fulfilled, but his sons will surely grow up with its foundation beneath their feet because Baba laid it through the hours he worked, through the life that he built, through the path that he paved. That journey is now stitched into the fabric of this city, the hope of an immigrant, the strength of a family, the resolve to serve the place that had taken him in and made him its own. There's a belief in Islam, sadaqah jariyah, that the good we do in this world doesn't end when we do, that there is true power in good deeds and a life of service leaves a lasting trace. Officer Didarul Islam lived that kind of life, one that keeps unfolding in the world he left behind, in the steadiness that he brought to those around him, in the streets that still carry a sense of safety because he once stood there, in the example he offered, not loud, not showy, but strong enough to stay with you. His watch may be over, but his impact will never be. And if there is any grace to be found in this grief, it is knowing that the light that he carried did not go out. It just moved forward, and it shines within the family that he worked so hard to build. For his wife and young boys, Didarul was the provider, the protector, the stable, supportive hand. And today, they are left to wonder, what now? Who will take care of us? Jamila, Ayan, Aizan, look around you. Look at all the NYPD officers here and outside this mosque and across this city who stand with you. I stand with you. I am so heartbroken for you and for your family. And as we scan that sea of blue, you will notice that they look a whole lot like Didar. They wear his uniform, his shield, his collar brass. They carry on his purpose and are sworn to finish the work that he started. And they will be there for you always. In the NYPD, there are certain honors that carry deep and enduring meaning, not because they mark a destination, but because they speak to the path it took to get here, to the service given, the sacrifices made, and the legacy left behind. Didarul Islam came to this country as an immigrant with no guarantees, only the hope that hard work, that humility, and that purpose might lead him somewhere meaningful, and it did. He earned the respect of his peers. He believed in this department. With only 4 years on the job, he did the work of a cop with twice that time and in a command where the work never slowed. But no matter what this job threw at him, you could count on Didar to get it done and to get it done right. And though his journey was cut too short, the way he lived this job with steadiness, with heart, with conviction, it reflected everything this title represents. So today, it is my honor and my great privilege to promote police officer Didarul Islam to detective first grade. Detective First Grade is one of this department's most respected honors. It is a symbol of trust, of excellence, and the kind of judgment that others depend on. And while Detective First Grade Didarul Islam didn't have the time to walk the full path, he embodied those qualities and more: steadiness, selflessness, and a commitment to serve. The night that Didar was killed, condolence messages poured in from every corner of the world. His death united millions in prayer, and there was one refrain that echoed again and again and again: may God grant him Jannah. For 2 billion Muslims, Jannah is the ultimate reward for living a righteous life of faith, kindness, and good deeds. It is paradise. And it is also one of the Islamic faith's great mysteries, because these wondrous blessings are beyond human comprehension. We will never know why, we will never understand, but even in our moments of greatest despair, we can take comfort in one thing that we do know. If Jannah is the reward for a righteous life well lived, then Didar Islam surely awaits his loved ones in eternal paradise. May God bless him. May God bless his family. May God bless the New York City Police Department. And may Detective First Grade Didarul Islam's memory be an eternal blessing.
You know, I think what's unique about this podcast is that we give a fair assessment. We criticize when necessary, and we praise when necessary too. And she deserves the ultimate praise for that speech, because that speech, you could feel it. I know it, Jessica Tisch, you contacted me. I want to say thank you when my son passed. And at the time, I figured maybe it's just grandstanding. But after hearing that speech, I think your sincerity was real. And I know that you do watch this podcast, so I have to commend you for that, because that speech was ultimately and completely about Officer Didarul Islam. It was about his family. It was about his life. It was about him and his partner, the connection to him being an immigrant, to his connection to being an American serving in New York City. It was about him. That's the only speech we should have heard. I would say the speech was so good that as we were listening to it, and I hope you agree, and same thing for friends and listeners here, I felt I went to a form of meditation. And what is meditation? Meditation is when you're in the moment of something and you have a calm feeling and you are in that moment where your only thought is what is in that moment and your focus at that time. And her speech was so driven about Officer Didarul Islam and his life that I believe, I hope you felt it, I felt it, was a moment just of calm, and you weren't thinking about anything else other than the sacrifice in the life and honor the legacy of Officer Islam and him being a Muslim and being an immigrant and being American and being a family man, a father, a husband, a son, a partner, a cop, a man. She humanized him. He was not just a badge, she said, behind the badge, and that's what she did. We heard about the man, Didarul Islam, not just a cop. That was outstanding. And that was real. You could hear it. I could hear it in her voice as she spoke. That was real. Because if that was fake, we better get her an Academy Award right now and get her in the next movie. Because I think that was real. So Jessica Tisch, the Honorable Police Commissioner of New York City, NYPD, I know you watch this. I want to thank you for that speech. That's exactly what we need to hear. Every other politician that was there, shut up, bow your head, and that's it. That's what we should hear. I felt I was in total meditation, thinking about Officer Islam. It was a calm moment. That was outstanding. I am impressed. Some people in the chat are saying here, for instance, Rob Lukesh, Finance Unfiltered family, says she didn't know him before, but she did her homework and she knows him now. Mike Smith, former detective, hardcore cop, said he respects her now. And you know what? So do I.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we criticize her when she needs critique, and we mock her and meme her when the situation calls for it, but we also praise her when that situation calls for it. And here she deserves it, because that speech, that there was a lot of sincerity in that speech, and the sincerity that was absent when all the other politicians spoke, and I think you got to hand it to her. She's increasingly appearing to be the only adult in 1PP, and I think if she keeps going that way, then I think she'll definitely retain the job, and I think she'll definitely make a mark on the department. As the guy who memes these guys, it's very hard to meme her, because again, she seems like the only adult in the room. And the only way it seems funny is like when you meme her seriousness against the backdrop of the clown show that the rest of the department, the rest of the leadership of the department seems to be, involved in themselves. So again, to Eric's point, she deserves praise for the sincerity there, and just hearing her speech again really touches you, and really, the moment really. It really comes home, and it's kind of it's a little bit hard to hear again, because you feel so much emotion coming from it. But yeah, I praise her, and I think I want to see her keep going and keep getting rid of the rot that's there in the department.
I totally agree. People, she didn't write that speech. She 100% wrote that speech. Nobody's going to dig in and get all the info that she had about his partner, about his life, about how he came here. She 100% wrote that speech. I'll put my last dollar on it, Yeah, and someone could have gave her the basis, but she put in everything. She could have went to GPT and put something in there, and then she changed every word on it. That could have been possible, but who doesn't do that? Who doesn't get a format of what it was? I think you could tell who cares, and you could tell who doesn't, right? I think I say it all the time. Be the person you claim to be, right? People know you're not faking it. You know what I mean? If you're the guy, you go to the gym with the cut-off sleeve and you're in the bathroom taking selfies, you're not really a gym guy. You're not. Well, you know how I know when you're a gym guy? When I look at you in regular clothes when you're not in the gym, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that guy works out. That guy works out. You know what I mean? When I see a cop who's standing there and his uniform's clean and his gun's ready, and he's looking around, and he's observing me, and he makes eye contact with me, and he makes eye contact around, and he knows his area, I'm like, that guy's a cop. And guess what? When I see that guy and he's not in uniform, or that girl and they're not in uniform, I know they're a cop, because they're it. They live it. They speak it. They embody it. I saw a police commissioner on that stage. I saw somebody that cared, that a life was lost of a police officer that worked for her. I saw somebody and I heard somebody that wants to make New York City better for all of us. Tisch is a devout Jew. There's a huge conflict going on in this country and across the world between Jews and Muslims. And she was in a mosque with a head covering on, honoring the life of a Muslim officer and covering her head while doing it. Yes, showing respects to where his faith and to where he prayed, right? And she put all that aside and she delved into even Islam and to their beliefs and what it means and where he's going to go and how it's going to end up. And then surely he fulfilled his mission as a Muslim. I mean, you can't fake things like that. You just can't fake things like that. Again, I'm not a fan of this administration at all. I think they're corrupt. I think they're inept. But even the chief meme officer of the Finest Unfiltered is here telling you it's hard. It's hard to even make fun of her because she is the only adult in the room. And Mike, I hear you. Mike says Mike Smith, Detective Mike Smith, retired. He says she gets my respect fully. I just wish she cut the transfers out for the detail guys. Again, I'm going to say it one more time. I don't think it's hot. And I think that she needs to pull those transfers back immediately. And I think she needs to cut the legs out of Chief John Shell and stop allowing him to do what's been happening. what's been happening is these transfers have been going on for a very long time. I mean, people were getting transferred, getting sent across the city because they didn't salute an assistant commissioner that you're not required to salute, by the way, that nobody knew. And they were just launching people, commanding officers, lieutenants, sergeants. They were launching people out of operations because he thought they left at the end of hanging up the phone. I mean, like, you think that these transfers just started on the Tisch? They've been going on the whole time. And what I'm seeing is what happened under Keechant Sewell. Well, we said she was the police commissioner in name only. What happened, I mean, Ed Caban was the party police commissioner. He didn't care that they were running the department. He didn't want to run the department. He had other concerns, right? He had other things that he wanted to do. Tom Donlin was also police commissioner in name only, and now he's suing, and he outlined everything that I heard from all the people that work directly for Keechant Sewell. He outlined exactly what I heard happened to her and why she left. And, you know, I'm like, read that lawsuit. It's happening to Jessica Tisch right now as we speak. Just because Jeffrey Madry's gone, just because Tim Pearson's gone, just because Tariq Shepard's gone, just because the other idiot, what's his face, the unindicted co-conspirator, just because he's gone, Phil Banks, you still got those people in place. You have John Schell as the chief of department. You have Kaz Daughtry as a deputy mayor. You have Tanya Kinsella in place. I'm sorry. She is being undercut. She needs to get it in what it is. And I totally, and if this didn't happen, again, if this didn't happen this week, right now, there would have been a press conference in front of One Police Plaza asking for Jessica Tisch to step down, citing that she's a racist and she's pushing black officers out there. And that was being orchestrated from John Schell, Kaz Daughtry, Pat Gordon, and they were using black faith leaders to do it.
Yeah. And by the way, only 8 people showed up for that. Okay.
I'm saying it would have been a lot bigger, you know. Let's go.
Oh yeah.
It would have been a lot bigger. Like, if this didn't happen, this would have been the calls in the news. They would have been front page. It would have been front page of the paper, you know. So this tragedy, this horrific event, is the only reason that stopped that. So let's go. Let's hear Pat Hendry. I mean, let's try to listen to Pat Hendry.
Commissioner. At this time, I'd like to invite up the president of the Police Benevolent Association, Patrick Hendry.
Monday was a day that changed and shattered so many lives. 4 New Yorkers who were torn away from their families that will never be the same, including our hero brother who put himself in harm's way to protect the people of this city. And just like the people he died protecting, he was torn away from his family. And for him, his family was everything. And on Monday at the hospital, I had the opportunity, unfortunately, to speak to police officers about him. And I can tell you this, every single day he came to work, he gave it 100%. He was determined, and he was focused, because it was always about providing for his family. Whatever he had to do, whatever hours he had to work, that's what he was about. And he could have gone any way to do that. He could have chosen any path. But he decided to become a New York City police officer, a job he loved. And he loved putting on that uniform every day and pinning that shield. But we all know what he was most proud of when he took off that uniform and he went home as a husband, as a father, and as a son. New Yorkers, often when they look at police officers, they see the uniform. And they sometimes don't think about the families that are waiting for us to come home, hoping we come home safe. And when a police officer makes the ultimate sacrifice, they're called heroes. But for this family and other families, it doesn't ease their pain. And for police officers, we understand that. There's not a police officer here or outside that's not thinking about their own family. And that's why it's our obligation, our duty, to be there for this family. Our hero brother did everything for his family. And now that he's gone, it's our job as police officers to step up and be there for this family. Not just because he's a hero, not just because he wore the uniform, but because he would have been there for all families. Federal Islam was a great cop, a great family man, and just a great human being. I want this family to know that we will always be there to honor him on into the future. And I want to thank the thousands of police officers who came out throughout this city, this state, this country to be there for this family. The community members, the families, the friends that came out to support this family. We will always honor our hero brother. God bless you all.
Thank you, Officer Hendry. I'd now like to...
So I want to say, let's do a comparison here. So Silver Spoon here in the chat is saying, what is wrong with the speech? And giving QC Beast a hard time, saying, oh, you only don't like the speech because John didn't like the speech. Well, John hasn't given you his perspective yet on the speech. What I'm telling you is I don't like the speech. I'm going to tell you that. I'm sure John's going to give his perspective. I don't like it. And here's why. Let's do a comparison. How, for our friends and listeners in the chat, Marlon, John, how did you feel when Jessica Tisch gave the speech and spoke about Officer Islam and his family? If you didn't, you have to ask yourself what kind of person you are. I went to a sense of meditation where I was calm, and I only thought about Officer Islam and his family at that point. And what she did, Jessica Tisch, is she made you connect with Officer Islam and his family and actually feel it. He tailored that speech to Officer Islam and his life and his connection to being an immigrant, to being an American, to being a police officer, to being a man, to being a father, a son, a husband, and about him. You felt that connection. At least I did. Now, to me, it's okay that Pat Hendry is not the best speaker. That's not what I'm asking for in eloquence. She has that also. But what I felt when I heard the speech from Pat Hendry, it felt empty to me. And it felt like a boilerplate in a sense where you could just take out, God forbid we have another funeral or a past funeral, you take out the name Officer Islam and insert another name, and it's the same speech. That's why it's not a good speech, in my opinion, because when he spoke, you don't feel the connection. He didn't dive into who Officer Islam was. He didn't do his homework to find out what were his hobbies, what's the family members' names, what's his wife like, where does he live. He just spoke about being a cop and in uniform was very generic. That's where I have a problem. I didn't feel the connection. I assume you didn't feel the connection also. So to your question, Silver Spoon, I didn't like the speech. And not because of his ability to be charismatic, because his ability to not care and not to make the connection That's what the speech is about. It's about reflection. You should sit there in a moment of total grace and meditate and say, wow, the only thing you should be thinking about at this point is Officer Islam. But to me, it was just completely empty. Marlon, what are your thoughts?
I agree 100%. It felt empty and like there was no familiarity with Detective Islam's personal his story and his life. And to me, now I said before last go around that Patrick Henry needs public speaking classes. Okay, and again, you're a union leader. You're gonna have to do a lot of these, and you have to inspire the union members. And so I think you really need to do better in that regard. The one thing you can't say about Pat Lynch is that he wasn't a good speaker, because he was. Okay, and you felt that emotion when he spoke. But again, I agree with you. This felt like a boilerplate, and I've said this many times. Anytime he speaks at a hospital for an injured cop, it's the same tired speech, and you could just record it and bring that recording to the next hospital press conference, because it's feels like the same thing over and over again. But yes, I think it it felt impersonal, and I think hear me out here. This is one of the reasons why the fraternal organizations, I think, are starting to compete with the unions in terms of like in terms of the role that they play, because I think a lot of guys I think a lot of ways the fraternal organizations may feel more, guys are going to feel more connected to those fraternal organizations than they are the union. And I have to think that the DESI organization, I think there's a Bengali Officers Association now, could have done a much better speech, and they probably knew Detective Islam a lot better than Patrick did. And I get it if Patrick didn't know his story, but I mean, you need to, go speak to his family, go speak to the cops that work with him, and bring a little personalization into that speech, So it's I agree with you. It's felt boilerplate and impersonal, and he could have done a lot better.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. We didn't even talk about Henry, so I don't know what anyone out the chat saying, what I didn't disagree, what I didn't like, what did like. I didn't even talk about Henry. But while I'm on it, while we're on it, I don't have any different opinion than you guys on this, because does anyone feel like that speech was heartfelt? Like Marlon just said, like, go to every time a cop gets indicted, every time a cop gets assaulted, every time a cop gets killed. It is literally the same speech. He's a terrible public speaker. Okay. There was still no personalization to that speech whatsoever. Nothing. I didn't like it. It doesn't feel heartfelt at all. He clearly didn't know him or take the time to get to know him. Right? He wanted to just get through that speech. Is it a hard thing to do to get up there? Absolutely. That's a hard thing. It's a terribly hard thing. And that's why it should be treated like the most important thing you did. I mean, look at Tisch. Like, look at all the pressure on her was to get to the bottom of the incident and to what happened and to get it out there to the media and to see what happened and to look at the tax plans. But I could tell what she put above all of that while doing all of those things. She put preparing the speech and speaking on that stage ahead of all of that. Behind the scenes, you didn't know it. We didn't know it. But I could tell that was her number one priority, that she stayed up late putting that speech together. That was her main priority while dealing with all of the other nonsense that comes of that speech. Like that comes with the reason she's giving the speech, right? So I again, I could criticize Tisch all we want, and I think we all could too. But the fact remains, the woman has never taken a salary from New York City. Never. She doesn't earn $1. I mean, really? Could you imagine Eric Adams volunteering for 2 seconds without earning money? Could you imagine Kaz Daughtry doing something without being on overtime? Could you imagine John Shell doing something without earning money for it? The girl doesn't take a dollar. I get she's a billionaire. I get she doesn't know the plight of the common man. She's starting to realize it now. She's starting to see it now. But I mean, I know Jessica Tisch. I know people who work directly for her, directly under her. I mean, you know, to say that she's a terrible manager or she hates people or she's too hard on people, I don't think so. I just don't. It's a woman that pays for her disabled employees, pays for Ubers for elderly employees. She doesn't take a dollar to do this. Who in their right mind does something? Who in their right mind would want to be the police commissioner? You know, and who in their right mind would want to be the mayor of the city? Guess what? If she becomes the mayor, she's not going to take a dollar. You know, I'll tell you right now, I don't agree with her a lot. 100%. She's a white lib. She's a white limousine cappuccino sipping lib. 100. What would John Shell call Siegel? Whatever he called Harry Siegel, that's exactly what Jessica Tisch is. I don't agree with her on a lot, but I respect her. I totally respect her. And when I look at Hendry's speech, I don't have that same feeling. And I'm not judging people just based upon speeches. I'm judging people because, like I said, you got to live it. You know, you got to live it. And how do you live it? It's because this is what you eat. This is what you breathe. This is what you do. Right? Like, I don't prepare for anything. We don't prepare for these podcasts. You know why? Because this is who we've always been. Right? These are our opinions. They're our real opinions. These are the things we always talked about. You know, people like, who the hell was telling me my whole identity is being a cop? I was like, really? I was like, most people are like, oh my God, you're a cop. I would have never thought that for 1 second. You know, even when I was a cop, I was like, I wouldn't have thought that for 1 second. And you know what? Jessica Tisch embodies what a police officer or a police commissioner is. She lives it. She eats it. She breathes it. She sleeps it. Pat Hendry looks like somebody that's just collecting a check. You know, so I'm going to skip. Oh no, I'm sorry. What are you saying, Marlon?
I'll go quickly. Samara Cohen in the chat says, "You guys do the show at least 3 times per week, and all of you are terrible speakers too." Now, I disagree with you, Samara. I think John and Erica are great public speakers. I agree with you. I'm a terrible public speaker, but keep in mind, just 3.5 years ago, I was just a detective. Okay, I didn't have to give any public speeches. I didn't have to talk to any groups of people, and I was always a quiet guy, you know. So this is all new to me. Being in front of a camera and having to talk like this is all new to me. But I disagree. John and Erica are great public speakers. But the problem here is that it's not about us. Okay, if I had to give a speech at a slain officer's funeral, I'm going to take time to go speak to his colleagues and his family and to learn about him. So even if I may be a terrible speaker, what I say is going to come from the heart, okay? And it's going to be personalized, and I'm going to try and get it across to you as best I can, even though I'm not the greatest speaker. But Patrick Hendry has a role as a union head that includes often going to giving press conferences at hospitals and speaking at funerals. It's his job, okay? And it's his job because you union members, you pay him, okay? So if it's your job to do this, you're damn sure better go learn it and do better, okay? It's not that hard.
No, and just on the public speaker, I personally agree with you. I think we're all terrible public speakers, 100%. I wouldn't, but I guarantee you one thing. If Pat Hendry was doing this podcast right now, Samara, you wouldn't be listening to it, because 3 times a week you're on here and you're listening to everything we got to say. And if Pat Hendry was on here talking about police issues, you would be sleeping. You would be going to look for a different podcast, you know? So, I mean, I think, whatever, we're not judging someone speak. I'm not judging the fact that he's a horrible speaker. I'm not judging the fact that Eric Adams is a mushbound. I'm judging the fact that they don't give a shit. And it's clear as day. It's clear as day to me that this is, I just want to get through this. I just want to get through it. right? What do you think, Eric? You think that someone's going to listen to a 3-4 hour podcast 3 days a week with Pat Hendry doing it, or Eric Adams?
Well, I think it's a great question, right? It's a great question. It's a great topic of what is a good speaker. And I would say that it's about the material, and it's about the authenticity, and it's about your relation to connect to the subject and the audience, right? So our audience is our friends and our listeners, and that's what makes this podcast is that we're all engaged together in this conversation. Now, Marlon, I actually think you're a fantastic speaker because you're authentic. It's not about eloquent words. It's about keeping it simple. It's about being authentic. It's about being knowledgeable and actually connecting to the material and connecting with the audience. And I think when it comes to this topic, I do think that we're great speakers because we're knowledgeable, we're compassionate, we're fair, and we're confident while maintaining humility. And we connect with our audience, which is our friends and listeners, and they connect with us. We connect together. And we also connect with our opposition, with our haters. And I think that's what makes someone a good speaker, is just being able to connect to it. And so if you gave me a topic, for instance, let's say something I have no knowledge of, and I don't know, maybe it's changing a carburetor in the car. You know, I'm very good when it comes to RVs, but if I had to give a speech on how to change a carburetor, it's probably going to be terrible unless I do my homework because I don't have any knowledge of it. I don't know the nomenclature. I'm not going to be able to connect with my audience. So to me, that's what makes a good speaker. Not about eloquent words, not about, and that's why I'm trying to say when it comes to Pat Hendry, it's okay if he doesn't use eloquent words. You don't have to. He can use simple words, but he has to connect with the cops, connect with the families, connect by showing that he dived into it to learn about Officer Islam. It just takes a little effort. To me, that's what it is to be a good speaker. I may be wrong. You know, Samara, I don't know what your subject is, what your passion is, but if you spoke about something you're passionate about, you would be a great speaker. If you spoke about something you have no knowledge, and that's why I always say, think about anyone here who's active or retired law enforcement, or if you were prior military or in the service now, and if you had roll call formation, and when you had someone, a superior speak to that formation, when they spoke of confidence and competence, they were good speakers. And it wasn't measuring their intelligence. It's because they knew the material. And if they spoke from a place of emptiness because they had no knowledge or didn't care, it didn't come off as authentic and you weren't engaged. To me, that's what it is to be a good speaker.
That's exactly my point. Like it's you're engaged, you know the topic, you care about the topic. I've only seen one person speak so far that did. Commanding officer gave a good speech. We're not going to get into it. We're going to skip over that. But the next speech that, you know, will probably make rounds and has already made rounds is the Imam speech. I'm going to play that now. And, you know, again, I think that the media has done a disservice to New York City. I think the media in New York City has done a disservice to Muslims in New York City. And, you know, I could see myself, if I was a Muslim officer, leaning towards voting towards Zohran Mamdani because of all the hate he's received, because about his faith, because of all the lies that were said about him, that he's a jihadist and he's this and he's that. And, you know, just because someone says free Palestine does not mean that they're a jihadist. It doesn't mean that they're Islamists, right? People say things. Doesn't mean they always agree with them. It doesn't even mean they know what they're saying. I mean, look at the idiot. What's his name? Rel. He's out there. He's protesting free Palestine. He doesn't even know what Palestine is. He's chanting from the river to the sea. He doesn't even know what river or what sea he's talking about. You know, and you think people can't say things, and you think like we're going to hold people so accountable for their words, yet we're not going to hold the mayor accountable for his words and his actions. We're only going to hold this kid accountable for tweets from 5 years ago, you know. And to me, you know, the divisiveness and division is causing all of us tribalism. It's causing Christians to defend Christians. It's causing Jews to defend Jews. It's causing Muslims to defend Muslims. It's and so on and so forth, and all the way. And we're doing a disservice by over being hyper vigilant about anything that's came out of Zohran Mamdani's mouth. He's a democratic socialist. He's a horrible candidate. His policies are ridiculous. His policies are the same as Eric Adams, who's a horrible candidate, who said a lot of horrible things. I've said a lot of horrible things. Marlon said a lot of horrible things. Eric has said a lot of horrible things. Everyone on this chat has said things that they don't know about, should have never came out of their mouth. They didn't know enough about. But right when you're at the funeral of a Muslim officer and you're sitting there in the background saying at the same time that, oh yeah, this guy's an Islamic jihadist and he's going to start beheading people and he's going to bring Sharia law into New York City, you're doing a lot to fan the flames of anti-Islamic hate. So I understand where this division's coming from. I think what this Imam's talking about is right to do at a funeral? Absolutely not. But I understand defending your faith. I've been doing it for a long time. I've been defending it against people of my own faith. I've been defending it against my church. I've been defending it against my Pope. I've been defending it against Muslims, and I've been defending it against Jews. So I know fully well what it feels like to be attacked, and I know what I do when I feel attacked. I go on the offensive. And so I'm not excusing what he's doing here. I think it's wrong to politicize a funeral, but I understand what's happening, and I also understand that why Muslim officers are leaning towards Zohran Mamdani. You're pushing them into it. You're forcing them to do it because they're like, wow, we're being attacked out here, and there's a lot of lies being spread about us.
At this time, I'd just like to invite up the Imam from our mosque, Imam Dr. Takir Ahmed.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. To the beloved family of Officer Didarul Islam, to the members of the NYPD and law enforcement family, to our elected officials, honorable faith leaders, fellow New Yorkers, community members, may the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon all of you. We stand today shoulder to shoulder, broken-hearted yet resolute, gathered not only in mourning, but in remembrance and meaning. We stand inspired by the life of a man who lived with purpose, served with honor, and died a hero. Didarul Islam, Officer Didarul Islam, whose name means the vision of Islam, lived up to it through quiet strength and purposeful service. He showed us what it truly means to live a life of meaning. He was a Bangladeshi Muslim American, an immigrant, like so many in our community, who came to this country carrying hopes larger than himself. The hope for dignity, for opportunity, for the chance to build something lasting. And he did. With courage and hard work, he didn't just pursue the American dream, he built it with his own two hands. But he didn't stop there. He gave back. He stood up. He chose to serve, to protect, to put others first. His life was a gift to this country and to every person he touched. He was a proud Muslim, a New Yorker, a dedicated police officer, a devoted son, husband, father, and brother. Like many of us, Officer Islam came to America seeking a better life, not just for himself, but for his family. He was the eldest son, the first to take responsibility, the sole breadwinner for his household. He supported his parents, his wife, and their two young sons, aged just 7 and 5. A third child is soon to enter this world, a child who will never feel their father's embrace. But God willing, will grow up hearing of his bravery, his kindness, and legacy. Despite these responsibilities, Officer Islam never stopped giving. He cared for the elderly and the poor, both locally and in his native Bangladesh, sending money, helping with housing, responding to needs quietly and consistently. He lived Islam not just in belief, not just in name, but in action, in compassion, in charity, in sacrifice. On the day he was taken from us, Officer Islam stood between danger and the innocent. He sacrificed his life so others could live. The Quran tells us, وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَكَأَنَّمَا أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. Whoever saves a life, it is as if they have saved all of humanity. Officer Islam fulfilled this verse with his very blood. He did not just save one life, but many by the will of God. And though we bury him today, we do not bury his legacy. We carry it forward. Last night, I sat with his grieving family. The room was filled with pain and with heartfelt memories. They told me of a man who put his faith into action, who strove to serve his creator and the creation. Selfless, always giving without asking. A man who worked overtime shifts, not for himself, but for others. A man who showed us what it means to live Islam with compassion, courage, and sacrifice. One of his family members said something that still echoes in my heart. When the shooting started, he didn't run away. He ran towards it. He confronted the shooter directly, giving others time to run, to escape, to live. He gave his life so others could be saved. This is what you call Islam. This is the kind of man our city just lost. But we must speak honestly. Officer Islam was a Muslim.
Before we go further, what do you guys think about the speech so far? He's giving a eulogy about a Muslim officer dedicating his life. I have zero issue with anything he said up until this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. At this point, he's talking about Muslim faith. He even explained what his name means. At this point, it's about Officer Islam and his Muslim faith. So I don't have any issues with it either at this point because it's about him. So I know. I mean, I heard the speech myself, so we'll hear the turning point. But up to this point, I agree. I don't have any issues with it.
Yeah, same here. Same here. No issues at all.
All right. So now he says, and now he says, this is what then he says, but we have to speak honestly. He was a Muslim officer, right? And so he is where you guys are listening.
A Bangladeshi, an immigrant, and a public servant. And yet he lived at a time when people like him are too often feared, vilified, and made to feel like outsiders. Islamophobia is not just offensive, it is dangerous. It leads to hate, it fuels violence, it isolates communities, and worst of all, it erases the full humanity of people who serve, sacrifice, and give everything to this country. We cannot honor Officer Islam today while ignoring the daily pain endured by his community, being told to go back where you came from, being watched more closely, judged more harshly, and loved less fully. To our city, our nation, you cannot ask us to serve and then silence us. You cannot take our sacrifice and ignore our suffering. Officer Islam gave his life for New York. Now it's time for New York and for America to give back, to see us, to hear us, to protect our dignity the way Officer Islam protected yours. And as we mourn here in New York City, we must not close our eyes.
Now he's going to go into the whole world. But before he gets on that, do you hear anything that he's saying that's wrong here? We would have no problem if it was a black reverend up there. We'd have no problem if it was a Hispanic priest. We'd have no problem if it was an Italian priest. We'd have no problem if it was a rabbi. Nobody would have one problem with what they're saying, right? Islamophobia is just as bad as anything that's out there, as racism, as anything, as anti-Semitism, as people who hate Catholics. I mean, I understand where these people are coming from because I felt it myself. I understand people who feel slighted, who feel marginalized, and at the same time we're being told, "Oh, you honor this guy. Do you really?" I don't blame any Muslim for feeling the way they do right now. I just don't.
I agree that may be a deep silver lining on how the Muslim community is feeling at this point. There's no doubt about it. There's just complete discrimination on different levels. But I don't want to hear from a black priest at this point. I don't want to hear from a rabbi. And I don't want to hear from an Imam either, because there's no indication that Officer Diderot Islam lost his life for being a Muslim. There's no indication that he's been discriminated at for being a Muslim in this particular incident, which he lost his life. He lost his life because he was wearing a blue uniform. So this, to me, was just an opportunity for this Imam to plug in this emotion that he has and the community has, and it just doesn't correlate, and there's no nexus between that and how he lost his life. So I don't think it's appropriate at this time. I don't think there is a time to talk about it. When it comes to his murder and the loss of life, there's no connection to it right now. He lost his life because he was blue, not because he was Muslim.
Well, I think if he had ended it there and switched back to Didar's personal story and talk more about him, I think there wouldn't be an issue at all. But I think here is where the sermon goes off the deep end, and he took it a little bit too far here, Now I agree, and I agree with what you're saying, and I think I think one of the problems happening now is people are falling into traps of tribalism and infighting, and that is being caused by people like Laura Loomer. And the thing here is that most Americans, it doesn't matter who you are, okay? Deep down, we all have the same concerns, okay? It's about things like your taxes, your mortgage, your kids' lives, their education, where you're living, your community. It's all the same, And these agents are put there to create strife and division amongst us, because if we're not infighting, we're all agreeing that, hey, I'm paying too much taxes for it right now. Hey, the quality of life in my neighborhood is going downhill. Oh, where's the cops at? There's less cops on the street, and that's what's happening. And he's falling into that same trap when he goes off the deep end and starts talking about and starts making a funeral about larger issues where it should really be on the life and the sacrifice of Detective Didar Islam.
So he's a faith leader in that community. His community feels marginalized, as they should, because of people like Laura Loomer and the right-wing media in New York. It's very hypocritical, I think, for us to say, oh, this portion's wrong for him, while we're sitting here talking about how all these people politicize his death. You know what I mean? Because I said it on the last podcast. Now is the time. Now is the time to talk about these things. He's talking about what he feels, what his community feels, what Officer Islam family feels. I agree with you, Marlon. If he would have ended it here and went back to Officer Islam, I honestly have no issue with it. People in here like, oh, you got to remember, Islam said they want to take us over. Well, I'll tell you right now, I got a problem with anyone that says that too. Let's have those conversations. Let's talk to each other. This is not an Islamic state. This is not a Jewish state. This is a Christian state. I don't want to have the call to prayer in my neighborhood. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't think I'm not throwing my stuff on you. You moved in here. We celebrate Christmas here. I'm not throwing it on you. You have the right to celebrate Ramadan. You have the right to holidays, and you have the right to all that. We're not forcing anything on you. Don't force anything on us. And the same goes for the Jews. And so I think we need to start having these conversations. And I think the only time that this community is going to get airtime to air their grievances is right now. So I honestly have no issue with the Imam, because I'll tell you right now, if it was me, I would have said the same thing. I would have said the exact same thing, and I would have brought it up, on Rivera and Moore's funeral too. I would have brought up right now. You were saying you honoring their sacrifice, but if they didn't give you a card, you would terminate them, right? Because that's the truth of the matter, right? He talks about Officer Moore and Rivera like they're his own children. Meanwhile, if that incident never happened, he would have terminated them 3 days later, just like he did to Marlon Bethel. So I disagree. I don't like the politicization, but overall, talking about the struggles that Officer Islam felt, I think is relevant. I do. Just the same way when a black cop comes in and says, I felt marginalized. I think that's how he feels. I may not agree with him, there's a lot of things I don't agree with Edwin Raymond on, right? But his experience was totally different than mine. His chip on his shoulder is a lot different than the chip I have on my shoulder. You know what I mean? I didn't walk through his world. I don't see the world through his eyes. I see it through mine. And I have to understand that. And I think that portion I have no issue with. This portion specific.
Well, Samara Cohen says here, Eric, you failed to see the larger picture. Detective Islam lost his life because he was poor. And he was poor because of his religion and ethnicity. That's the gripe. Well, I don't agree with that, to be honest. I'll push back. I don't think that he lost his life because he was poor. He lost his life because there was a savage animal that decided to be an active shooter and take the life of a police officer. He lost his life because he was a target in uniform. He lost his life because of failed policies, because we don't have the manpower. We're not policing properly. Whether he wasn't poor because of his religion or ethnicity, he was a police officer in a diverse law enforcement agency. That I have an issue with. Talking about religion and ethnicity of why he got killed. I don't see any indication that he was targeted for being Muslim. I don't know what's in the mind of this perpetrator, but I assume that this perpetrator didn't even know he was shooting a Muslim police officer. He just knew he was shooting a police officer in uniform that was possibly to obstruct his ability to get to his mission, and his mission to carry out his mission of killing people at the NFL building. That's my opinion on it. I get it. I faced anti-Semitism growing up as a kid. Even though I'm not Orthodox, but I always said I'm Jewish, and I always told people I'm Jewish because a lot of people said to me, "Well, that's a religion." And to me, it was more of a religion. It was an identity. Being Jewish was an ethnicity. It was a religion and an identity. And I did face anti-Semitism, but I'm not going to stand somewhere and constantly use that and speak about it and marginalize myself. I use that motivation part to become the man I am today. So I get what you're saying. I just don't think it fit into this conversation. I don't think it was the time. I'm not saying he wasn't marginalized, and maybe he felt some anti-Semitism in his life, but not in this particular incident. I just don't think he found a way to plug it in. I just don't. I don't see how it fit.
Yeah. Like we said, I have no issue up until this point. It's unfortunately there are things going on now that brings a lot of that into the conversation, especially with what's been talked about of Zoran but again, that's all distraction, and I said this offline that again, people like Luma are part of they're meant to keep you herded into that two-party dialectic, You're either extreme right or you're extreme left. You're not that they don't want nuance, okay? And they don't want us agreeing on anything, because if we agree on anything, we start to question a lot of the things that are out there. They want you fighting with each other. And the reality is most Americans, we live right next, especially in New York City. You have Jews living next to Muslims, and sometimes the neighborhoods are the same neighborhoods, with Jews and living on Muslims, and nobody's killing each other. Nobody, it's ridiculous. In America, we again, people care about the same issues, but they don't want you to realize that. Okay, they want you fighting amongst each other over nonsense, because that keeps you distracted, and it keeps the wool over your eyes. Okay, and as we said before, these talking points about Zoran are ridiculous. Okay, because you're not Zoran becoming mayor is not going to bring Sharia law into City Hall. Okay, all right. And that whole divisiveness it just doesn't serve, especially coming from the Republicans. By the way, it doesn't serve Republicans, the party, well, because they're already, like, I talk to some people in my family that I tell them hey, listen, you voted Democrats all your life. Maybe it's time to see how that's worked. It hasn't. Maybe it's time for you to vote the other side. And there's a lot of older people, especially, that still think, oh, Republicans are racist. Okay. So when you're doing things like that, you're not helping the image. Okay. But my point is that these people are paid to keep people in this party or that party, and not having nuanced discussions about things, about the real issues that affect our lives.
Just one question for you: if you guys were a Muslim cop and you're watching all the hate that's going towards Zohran Mamdani and all of the lies saying he's going to bring Sharia in and he's going to behead people and he's going to make sure all the women wear burqas, who are you more likely to vote for? Because I'm voting for Zohran Mamdani if I'm Muslim. Because you're making me feel like I'm an outsider and that lies are being spread against me. The same way that when John Miller is saying that the guy that did this, the murderer that did this, is a male white. The same way when Rebecca Weiner is saying that her job is to go after white supremacy and people that are looking to overthrow the government, it makes me think, you know what? I think these people are crazy, and I'm not voting for them. I don't want these people in power. I don't want anything that they align with. I don't want to be involved in anything they do because they're complete liars. They're distorting reality. And so that's who I'm voting for. I'm voting, like, if I'm Muslim, you're literally pushing every Muslim in New York City to vote for Zohran Mamdani.
Yeah.
Well, I think if I was Muslim, I would be torn right now. And the reason why I would be torn is because you're looking at this right now and you're saying, as a Muslim man, this candidate is being demonized for being Muslim and painted as a jihadist. And that part of you would feel like, wow, I want to motivate to get him in. But then there's the dichotomy. It's the other side of it that I would be torn as a Muslim and say, well, I'm also a cop. And this candidate is saying that the evil man that shows up to a scene is the man with the gun. The bad guy that shows up is the guy with the gun. This candidate is shooting for defunding the police. He wants to replace the majority of the police force with civilian socialist type workers. So I would be torn because the Muslim man, yes, support his faith, support the faith, but as a cop, I'm being demonized. So that would be definitely crossroads. That would be a tough position. You know, where does your identity lie, and you know, where do you feel at that point? So I think that would be extremely tough. I'm curious if there's any Muslim friends here, and if they feel the same, if they're active or retired. You know, would you feel the same as a Muslim police officer about Zohran Mamdani?
I mean, I'm putting my kids ahead of my career. I'll tell you that. I'm putting my kids ahead of anything. You know, so if you're telling me that I'm a this and I'm a that, I'm defending my kids first. You know, so like
John, you did. You retired early, and you supported your children. You support every cop, and you supported yourself by standing on your religious beliefs. So you did.
Yeah, you know, and so like that's my whole thing, and I think it's wild. But here's where it 100% goes off the rails, and I totally don't agree with. I get we're talking local issues, and I agree. If he would have ended it or went back, I wouldn't have said a word, honestly, because I understand it. But this is where I think he goes off the rails.
To the pain of the world around us. Today, as we bury Officer Islam, thousands of civilians in Gaza, in Palestine, are also being buried. Not because of disease, not because of natural disaster, but because of bombs, blockades, and calculated starvation campaign. Entire families have been wiped out. Children are being starved to death as we speak. Medical aid is blocked. Water is denied. Food is used as a weapon. What is happening in Gaza is not merely a humanitarian crisis. It is a genocide. And silence in the face of genocide is complicity. In Sudan, too, famine, war, and ethnic cleansing continue, with almost no media coverage, no outrage, no accountability. Millions suffer, millions die. Where's the world's humanity? If Officer Didarul Islam taught us anything, it is this. One person can make a difference even at the cost of their life. So what will we do, all of us, with our lives? Will we turn away from the suffering of others? Or will we speak out even when it's uncomfortable, when it's unpopular? Because true justice is not just local, it is global. As Dr. King said so powerfully, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. If this gathering today means anything, let it be this, that we commit ourselves not just to honoring his memory, but to building a world worthy of his sacrifice. A world where children, whether in the Bronx or in Rafah, sleep in safety. A world where justice is not selective. A world where freedom is for all, not for some. A world rooted in shared humanity, justice, mercy, and peace. To our elected officials, we thank you for your presence. Now we ask for your courage. Do not just stand for Officer Islam in death. Stand with his people in life. Protect the vulnerable, denounce hate, work for peace. Demand an end to genocide and a commitment to the dignity of all people. To our brothers and sisters in the law enforcement, you lost one of your own. We lost a beloved son of our community. Let his memory push us all to be better in service, in justice, and in how we treat the communities we are sworn to protect. To the Muslim community, let us not despair. Let us organize. Let us lead with the same selflessness that Officer Islam lived. He was one of us, and he will always be a part of us. As we pray for the deceased, we also mourn for the other 3 victims whose lives were senselessly taken from us. Allahumma ighfir lahu warhamhu wa'afihi wa'afu anhu وأكرم نزله ووسع مدخله واغسله بالماء والثلج والبرد. Oh Allah, God Almighty, forgive him, have mercy on him, grant him peace in his grave, and wash away his sins with water, snow, and ice. Oh Allah, grant him the highest place in paradise. Raise him among the righteous and the martyrs. Let his children grow up with faith and character, proud of the father they had, a man of faith, a man of service, a man of sacrifice. We will not forget, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To God we belong, and to him shall we return. Not just because he died as a hero, but because he lived as one. Thank you all so much.
Yeah. I hate the speech. You know, to me, it started off good. He's talking about Officer Islam, his family, what his name means, the Muslim faith. And okay, you know, I know you guys felt that part was okay, where he started to talk about, you know, being Muslim and facing anti-Semitism. And that's why I do have a problem with it, because that was the prefacing where he segues into this creating a stage. That's what he did. He did the same thing that Eric Adams did. He turned the funeral into a stage, and he politicized the event. And that, to me, it's absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting because that savage, evil shooter that took his life did not take his life because he was Muslim. He took his life because he was doing his duty as a police officer. He was a target wearing blue. It had nothing to do with Israel, had nothing to do with that. He was serving in America. He was serving his country. He's an American. Are there atrocities going on overseas right now? Yes, but we don't need to get into that subject right now. It wasn't necessary. There's no correlation. There's no connection. And as far as who's right overseas right now, go back and forth. We could go back and forth all day. We could go back to the 6-Day War and talk about this. But right now, he's an American serving in New York City. He was a New York City police officer. And more than that, he was a father, he was a son, and he was a man of Muslim faith. That we should be talking about. That sucked, honestly. He just created a complete stage and totally politicized it. And, you know, I don't know if that scores him points in the Muslim community with other imams. I don't know, or other intellects, right? Because they said he had a doctorate. So I just very disappointed. It wasn't necessary.
Yeah, he took the took the funeral and made it something else that it shouldn't have been, you know. And that is exactly the point where he lost me. And I thought, I think he lost the gentleman that was next to him too, because you know, it seemed like he was coming closer and trying to tell him, you know, maybe not to go down this route. You know, I don't know, maybe it's just me. But yeah, I think that was uncalled for, and I think again the problem is the funeral isn't about and it shouldn't be about global issues. Okay, it should be about the life that Detective Islam had and his sacrifice. And when you make it about something else, you're doing a disservice to his family.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and again, like that's why I was against like riding Israel's coattails, because I'm like, listen, why are we getting involved in this? Unless we're putting this conflict to a stop right away, and we're really fighting the battle here, and it shouldn't be fought at a funeral. And again, for everyone, I'm this, I'm that, go there, get out of here. This is America. Like, I'm done hearing about it. Like, I don't know about it. I don't understand it. We have a lot of issues here. A lot. I'm an American citizen. I'm not trying to figure out the plight of Italy right now. I'm just not. I'm not over in my town in Sicily figuring out what the hell to do. I'm not. There's a town named after me in Sicily. I'm not there. I'm not trying to. I don't know the politics there. I don't know what's happening there. My kids more than likely aren't going to grow up there, live there, retire there. So I just don't. I don't get the constant infighting. And honestly, when I hear people talk about the conflict, I'm like, wow, these people. I know more about the conflict than they do. And I'm like, you're fighting. You're just fighting to fight. You don't even know what you're fighting for. You don't even know what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not well informed in it, but I'm better informed than people that are brawling about it, And I'm like, it's to me, I just, again, it's a divisive tactics. I don't think it has a position. But overall, a lot of people saying in the chat, and I totally agree. I still think overall speech was better than Eric Adams. It was still better than the mayor of New York City. Like it's, I'm like, I gotta be honest. At least he went into Office of Islam, talked about his life, talked about the plight he felt. He took his 2 seconds to talk about the whatever political point he wanted to score, and he moved on. I still think the speech was way better than Eric Adams. I think honestly, end of the day, Eric Adams was a disaster. Him and Kathy Hochul should have 100%. I would have 100% turned my back on both of them as they walked past. I would have probably turned my back on Pat Henry too as the speech was happening. But that's a different story.
John, I gotta agree with you. I think we spoke about it yesterday. Maybe it was yesterday or the day before. That there, right now, all this opposition, this polarizing hate towards Zohran Mamdani is causing voters to really question this anti-Semitism and really create more motivation towards voting for Zohran Mamdani. I think it's causing an adverse effect. So I agree with you. I think that if anything, they're actually. We've talked about this all the time. What's important when you're in politics is name recognition, and this has created more name recognition. I talk about promotion by Rocket Fuel. His name has been recognized by Rocket Fuel. We've never seen a politician, get their name so recognized, not just in New York City, but by the entire nation. Like this, it's been pure Rocket Fuel because of the hatred, because of this polarizing disdain that we hear from Muslims has created more bond for people to get together and vote for Zohran Mamdani. So I think it definitely did create an adverse effect.
Yeah, last go around, John mentioned that all the hate for Zohan is pushing a lot of people of that faith towards him, and I'll tell you that's not that's deliberate. Okay, because see, they're pushing you into one of 2 boxes. You either vote Zohan or you vote Adams. Okay, and it's that 2-party dialectic that I mentioned before, right? And the thing is, if you're Muslim, I mean, Zohan isn't really. I mean, he's secular, okay? Because a lot of the things that Zohan is for, I'm not gonna name them here, but you can figure it out. A lot of things that Zohan is for is haram, okay? And that means it's forbidden. So if you look deeper into his politics, you're gonna see that he's not really a religious guy, okay? But what they're doing is forcing you is pushing those people into voting for Zohan, okay? and that's deliberate. That's deliberate. Again, it's part of that two-party dialectic. And I'll tell you something else. Look at the national attention Zohan has gotten right now, right? At this point, he doesn't even need to be mayor. Okay, he can run for Congress or the Senate. Okay, because he's gotten that national awareness from these figures like Loomer. Okay, and again, I don't believe any of that is coincidental. Okay, I believe it's part of pushing you into those extremes. Okay, because it keeps you distracted, and it keeps the wool being pulled over your eyes, and it keeps your lives from being ruined in what's called a boiling pot. Okay, that the temperature is slowly being turned up, and you don't notice it because you're too busy being distracted by this stuff. Okay, and too busy being distracted by infighting.
Yeah, and Zohan's about as socialist as Bernie Sanders is, like, yeah, going off to your $1 million homes and all your mansions and your armed security. That was another thing that came up. Everybody's like, why does Zohan Mamdani have NYPD security? He wants to defund them. All right, fair point. Why does Eric Adams? He did defund them. Why does he have it? He said that if the city was safe, he wouldn't have a security detail. Why are we talking about just Zohran Mamdani? If Zohran Mamdani doesn't get a security detail, then neither should Cuomo or Adams. As the sitting mayor, he shouldn't have a security detail because they all wanted to defund the police. And then there's like all this talk about why does he have a security detail? Let's think. Because he became the #1 most targeted Muslim in all of America, the most #1 targeted politician in all of America. I think at this point his life is in danger a lot. I think he needs a NYPD security detail. If I was the mayor, I don't agree with him at all. I'd give him a security detail. But I love the selective rage and I love the selective blame on failed policies. Again, I said it on Sal's show. I'm going to say it here. I wish that we held politicians as accountable for what they actually do as we are for holding Zohan Mamdani accountable for tweets he made 5 years ago. I wish we held the politicians that are in office right now as accountable as we are for Zohan Mamdani's tweets. Where were these people for the last 4 years? Where were they? If you guys were there and the media was there and everybody was there, guess what? Me and Marlon would still be at work. Eric still be at work. Where's all this selective outrage coming from? When the media tells you to be angry, you're angry. When the media tells you to shut up, you shut up. When the media tells you you're a conspiracy theorist, you hide in the corner. It's pathetic.
John, I got one better for you. We're hearing all this concern. Why does Zohran Mamdani have an NYPD security detail? Why did Ed Caban, former police commissioner's brother, have an NYPD security detail? That's what I want to know. I see reason why Zohran Mamdani has a security detail over the brother of former police commissioner Ed Caban, who was actually terminated from the NYPD. Why did he have a security detail? That's a question.
Mom, what do you think? What do you think about Zohran Mamdani having a security detail? Are you so outraged?
Well, I kind of agree that he should have it because of what's going on, and we live in times that unfortunately I have to say that you never know with all this, the constant Zohan's going to bring Sharia law and Zohan's basically a terrorist. You have to wonder if some wacko is going to try something, and so I unfortunately don't necessarily have an issue with him having a detail. In fact, I've said before that I think maybe Curtis should get one guy too, because we're in extreme times. And as I said before, I hate to go there, but there's a lot of billionaires with a lot of money vested, a lot of money and interest vested in Eric Adams becoming mayor. So I hate to say it, but you never know in these times, So again, I don't necessarily have an issue with him having a detail.
Yeah, listen, I agree. If what's the best? I say it all the time, and I really believe in this. What's the best ability to measure a standard is by making comparisons. So if we make a comparison, former police commissioner Ed Caban, his brother, who, mind you, was terminated from the NYPD, was terminated, had a security detail from the NYPD. I think Zohran Mamdani, who's running for mayor, and also Curtis Sliwa, I would find it more suitable for them to have an NYPD security detail more than the brother of the former police commissioner, who was terminated by the NYPD also, who's under suspicion for a racketeering scheme. I think that is more of a problem. Don't you think?
100%, dude. And 100%. Chronicle says, does every candidate have the right to an NYPD security detail? If they could have the need, if they could say that they would, I mean, if they could prove that there's a threat against them, yeah, 100%. And I think if you look at any mayoral candidate who's known by the public, there's going to be numerous threats against them, you know. But you see the maniac, Curtis Sliwa, he don't have no security detail, you know, and that guy's out on the street every day. He's taking the train every day. You know, when he goes to see his shorties out in Far Rockaway, he's on the train. He's not in a motorcade going down to Far Rock with like Eric Adams is. And speaking of motorcades, here's Eric Adams about to enter the funeral. I mean, here's another thing. Like when you see this, it's just totally disgusting. He's like, hey, I want to make one of those videos like John. Watch.
Just arrived at the funeral for Officer Islam. Last night, spending time with his dad, he shared how proud he was of his son, and he just wanted the best for him, like I want for my son Jordan. It's a very painful moment with mixed emotions. We know we have an obligation, a job to do in his memory, and that is to remove dangerous guns off our streets so parents will never have to endure this pain. Let's continue to lift his family up in prayer and our city up in prayer for all the victims of this senseless violence.
So there he is, grandstanding at a funeral, making this dumb video that probably took him about 7 takes to do. And what's his message? Gun control. He's using the death of a police officer to call for gun control. So all you MAGA guys, oh, it's time to get behind Eric Adams. He's like a Republican anyway. Yeah, Republican support taking away your Second Amendment right? I didn't know that. I guess they do now. I guess they're for government inefficiency. They're for vaccine mandates. They're for corrupt politicians. And they're also for taking away your guns. Congratulations, guys. I didn't know. MAGA.
Everything that you hear at Eric Adams' mouth is just pure bullshit. That's pure bullshit. It's just creating a stage just to tell his story. Every time you hear Eric Adams talk, it's a stage to tell his story. What do you say? You Negroes are condemning me? You know, what are you, stupid? It's always about him. It's always about his story. The only time that we see that he cared and showed any empathy and sympathy was for himself when he was down on a knee having people pray over him because he's praying he could get reelected and praying he could keep his job. Eric Adams, you know who he cares about? And maybe you want to watch this, Kaz Daughtry. Not you, John Shell. He cares about Eric Adams. You're not in the positions you're in because he cares about you. You're in the positions you are because he thinks he's smarter than you. And that's why he had you in those spots. Eric Adams cares about Eric Adams. That's it. It's clear as day.
Yeah, this is no different than SRG. When he talked about SRG, okay, remember his political platform is security, and what failed here, security. Okay, and the city is not adequate. We've talked about it before. The city is not adequately prepared for an incident for like active shooters like that. Okay, can you remember in the mid 90s, LA had the North Hollywood shootout. And can you imagine something like that happening in Manhattan? You know, I mean, even with our ESU, how many people would get hurt before a proper response gets there? So what he's doing right now is trying to displace the blame on guns and gun control, which is a national issue. And he wants to displace it rather than talk about the low manpower problem that the city has and the lack of adequate preparedness for situations like this. Because again, he has to displace it because his political platform is security. Okay, and it has failed so far, and it'll, as we've been saying before, it'll continue failing until we get to the heart of the issue, which is you need a properly staffed and well-trained police department. And that means cutting to the heart of the corruption, malfeasance, and poor leadership that's in One Police Plaza. And he doesn't want to talk about any of that. Okay. And he doesn't want to solve the actual issue. He wants to get reelected. And that's what he's doing here.
Well, I didn't realize we went 2 hours and 25 minutes so far. Do you guys want to do more? Do you want to listen to this Kat Daughtry interview, or should we start wrapping this up? What do you think?
Let's do the Kat Daughtry and then get out of here because my ass is feeling it today. Remember, we're about 15 minutes late. So.
Yeah, we were scrambling in the background. So, all right.
I was having anxiety trying to get this thing going today.
It was actually my fault, but I still blame Eric. I don't care. I blame him.
Somehow I'm always getting blamed. Let's go to panic mode.
All right. So this was an interview. I don't know that we'll do the whole thing, but let's just go through a little bit of it.
We're also learning more about 3 other victims killed. Their families just beginning to come to grips with the unthinkable loss of their family members. 46-year-old Alana Etienne was a security guard. His union saying he will be remembered as a hero. His brother speaking yesterday in Brooklyn as the family processes a tragedy.
I'm still trying to process what happened yesterday, and all prayers with everybody that's affected by this, and it's a very tough time right now.
Wesley LePatner worked as a senior managing director of real estate for Blackstone. She was a 10-year veteran. Her company calling her brilliant, passionate, warm, and generous.
And then there's Julia Hyman, who worked on the 33rd floor for Rudin Management. She grew up in Manhattan, graduated summa cum laude from Cornell University. A former dean saying her achievements and intellect made a lasting impression on them. She had so much promise. They all did.
Senseless.
And it is absolutely
senseless violence. All right, joining us now with more is Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, Kaz Daughtry. Good morning. Kaz, I feel I just have so much, I'm so sorry, is the way I feel. I know that this officer is a family member to you all. Can we talk about him as a community member, though? Officer Darul Islam. Let's talk about as a father, as a husband. What can you fill in for us about the character of this man?
Yep, and thank you. You know, remember, as a lot of New Yorkers know, that I was in the police department for 20 years, so I know how it feels to wear a uniform, go out there, do this job. Been doing it, you know, it's something I'm very passionate about. I love doing it, and that's what I heard today from speaking to his colleagues at the 4-7 precinct, where me, the police commissioner, the governor, the mayor was there. And when you talk to his colleagues and when you're talking to the officers that worked on his shift, and you can see their eyes just watering up, and it was telling me that he was a father. He was expecting another child. He was talking about that child. He wore his he had his photos of his children and his family inside of his little pocket inside of the hats.
Yeah.
And when you just hear that, and I mean, the overwhelming emotion in that precinct right now from losing an officer, I can tell you it is. You can see the trauma on all of those officers' faces in there, and you just feel so bad. And what can we say as leaders? What can you really say besides that we are here for you?
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate sacrifice for somebody who committed themselves to others. That was his role when he became an officer. What can you tell us about the moments that this happened? Because the story that we share is that he was off duty, in uniform, wearing a vest when this gunman walked in. And we were talking about it earlier.
He was off duty. He was doing paid detail. Like I said before, he was trying to make a couple extra bucks when he was hired by the company to work there in the uniform. And as soon as you take police action, when you're in uniform, you automatically you get back what they call in a big clock, which is the...
I thought that was fascinating, that little tidbit.
Yeah, so he was taking police action and, you know, shot multiple times when this gunman walks into the lobby. But let's just talk about that for a particular second, because after the dignified transfer from the hospital to the morgue, the ME's office, myself, the mayor, and the commissioner, the chief of department, we went to the scene and we did a walkthrough.
Yeah.
And during that walkthrough, the crime scene investigators and the chief of detectives were able to kind of give us a play-by-play. And when the individual walked out of his car, it was like around 6:27. He got to the lobby around 6:27, and a couple seconds later, the first 911 call comes in at 6:28. So when he walks through those revolving doors, he turns, he fires on the officer, shoots him, fires on the NFL employee that was down there in the lobby, he shoots him. But let's talk about that employee. He was able to crawl out of the door. He didn't call 911. He called his friends to tell him upstairs what was happening. You guys, like that, I just got shot downstairs, get cover. You got to fortify those doors, hit those panic rooms. He's letting his team know, like this guy's a hero.
Whoa.
Hero. Wow. Then that and God was there that day. God was there, because after he then shoots the security guard who was trying to get to the panic button and under the desk to recall the elevators from coming downstairs so they can't go upstairs. And you can see where he was trying to go. Then the gunman, the suspect, goes to the elevator bank where a female comes off the elevator.
The woman who walked right off?
She had an angel with her because he lets her walk right out.
Yeah.
Goes upstairs to the 33rd floor and starts to fire through the doors on that hallway door as soon as you come out the elevator bank. And then there was a cleaner, a maid there.
Yeah.
Here's the shots. And watching this video, guys, extremely dramatic and horrifying.
I mean, we haven't been able to show.
I'm going to kind of give just a small details where the cleaner, where she hears the shots, he sees her, she makes a right, he makes a left. If she would have made that left, they would have ended up with each other. He would have took her down. She's then she's even grabbing her the pail as she's running down the hall. And he's firing at her. She comes out of plain view. The other worker on the floor was able to get into the safe room, and the company, Ruder Management, did everything. They had panic rooms. They had cameras in the hallways, and each one of the bathrooms are panic rooms. But she looked at I guess she must have looked at the cameras and saw that maybe the coast was clear. And then the gunman hears the door.
I can't listen to this anymore. But like this is what he was so panicked about getting that folder for. He needed all the details. I need to know everything so I could get out there and jump on the news and guys, you could come around the campfire so I could tell all these details. This kid is a clown, complete clown, bro. It's ridiculous.
I just want to know if after he does these interviews, if he goes home and looks in the mirror and goes, Kaz, you did good today. Kaz, yeah, you did good today. I can see it right now, right, Marlon?
Probably.
I'm thinking, like, you could see it like he was in, like, John, what'd you say, campfire story? Like he was enjoying it. Like they're surrounded around me. I'm telling stories. And how many times do we have to hear? It's almost so rehearsed. It's like me, the mayor, and this person, we went here. Me, the mayor. Like how many times, it's like, it's almost like, remember when you were a kid, when they had those things, it was like Mad Lib, and it was like, you had a story and you had to like input the names or words to change the story. He has a story, and every time he has to input me and the mayor, me and the mayor. I'm sickened by that story. And you know what? It proves he's such a moron and has no idea about the response and the investigation. You're right, John. That's why he need the binder. Because he didn't talk about the investigation. He didn't talk about the response because he doesn't know anything about it. He talked about the panic room and the response of the corporate business at the NFL and their response. He didn't talk about anything about the NYPD because he doesn't know it.
Totally ridiculous. Sorry, Marlon. Sorry. Go. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say that this goes back to what we've said before about his role. What's his role exactly? Okay, because the police commissioner is the head of the police department. So if anybody should be giving an interview right now, it's the PC, not you. Okay, you have so Kaz is supposedly overseeing a lot of the other code enforcement agencies in the department in the city. So if the issue involves them, okay, I get Kaz should be talking about them, but it's the police department. So who's in charge here? Okay, it's the PC. Okay, there shouldn't be anybody else but the PC or some other representative that the PC sends, maybe Chell or Rebecca Weiner or somebody else. Okay, not Kaz. Okay.
Totally agree. So listen, Wednesday we're going to have retired Inspector Corey Pegues on the show. But before we end, just real quick, I just want to give a little snippet of this video that he put out. So, and I'm kind of shocked because I think he's friends with Eric Adams. He had him on the show recently, a few months back. I think we played you that clip. So just real quick, let's listen to this real quick.
Welcome to Corey's Corner. There's been a lot of noise about the Democratic nominee for the upcoming mayor's race in New York City, Zoran Mandani, and how he's going to change the police department. He's going to revamp all of these units. He's going to keep the same police commissioner. People are running scared, especially in the police department. Well, listen, let me help you with an informed vote. When you go into vote, you have Mandani and, if your choice is, Eric Adams. So let's look at the two. The current mayor, Adams. Let's go through his administration since he's been in. He's had 4 police commissioners in 3 years. Unprecedented. The first one, Sewell, came in with a bunch of fanfare. She was going to be the Holy Grail. She ended up leaving because she, allegedly didn't have the power and authority to do what she wanted to do. The second police commissioner, Eddie Caban, who's a friend of mine, love that guy. He left because allegedly his twin brother was using the police department as his own personal security. The third police commissioner, interim police commissioner Dolan, he left because allegedly he found that the practice of securing property was a mess, and he was asked to leave. All right. The fourth police commissioner, who's the current police commissioner, Tisch, she has absolute zero experience in the police department as a cop. I mean, she worked in the technology section of the police department. She came from sanitation. She was a sanitation commissioner. Okay, let's look at his chief of departments. First chief of department he had is this guy, Freaky Jeff Magic. Y'all remember this guy. He has put the NYPD on the map. Allegedly, he was doing freak offs in his office. He allowed this lieutenant to make over $400,000. She was like, allegedly his sex slave. That's what, her lawyer is saying. It was compelling her to have sex. Second one, this bozo, John Shell. He's the present police chief of department. 2008 or 2009, he shot and killed an unarmed black man when he was a lieutenant in an auto larceny unit in Brooklyn South. Went to court. He was never charged with the shooting. Civilly, the NYPD, I believe, paid over $2 million settlement to the family, and allegedly he got caught lying on the stand. He can't even testify in any court in New York because no district attorney will put him on the stand. Let's go through deputy mayors of public safety. First one, Phil Banks, someone I worked for, someone I call a friend. The smartest guy that I ever worked for as far as police work is concerned. Stalwart went from cop to chief of department, which is very rare. I think it's only a handful of them that has done that, had every single rank up to 4-star chief. I know Rodney Harrison is one, and I think there's like 2 more. Let's do the second one. Deputy Mayor Chauncey, almost 4 decades in city government, held leadership positions all over the city of New York, leadership positions. He left because he couldn't take it no more in administration. When the current mayor got indicted, him, along with, I think, 4 other deputy mayors, stepped down the same day. They gave their resignations. Couldn't take it. Gone. And then he is signed as deputy mayor of public safety, this clown. Oh man, where do we start? Absolutely no leadership experience, none, zero, zilch. His claim to fame is he drove Freaky Jeff since he was the commanding officer of the 7-3 precinct, all the way up to he was chief of department. And so the mayor, and the way he just throws positions around, he just picked a straw and said he's going to make this guy the deputy mayor of public safety. So I guess he's on the same level as Phil Banks, who had over 30 years and became the second deputy mayor of public safety, and Chauncey, who had almost 4 decades of experience. Oh, these two had decades of supervisory experience. And then he puts disposal. As a matter of fact, they're not close. Take a look at this video.
It's your boy Kaz Dorsey. Let me get a chopped cheese. The Aki way. First, we're going to slap the ground beef on the grill. And then I'm going to hit it with the peppers and onions. Then we slap the bacon on the grill.
Yes, that's all you need to see. So for all the people that's so worried about, man, Danny, what he's going to do, who he's going to assign, look at the track record of the person that's here already. Now, we don't want to make the same mistake that we made the President of the United States. Remember, he had a track record of BS. Kamala Harris did not have anything. Everybody was definitely afraid of her without even knowing what she's going to do, especially you immigrants that's out there. He's taking your families all over the country. Your families are all scared. They're hunkering down. Some of them not even going to work. Okay? Let's not make the same mistake. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm just giving you facts. You got Mandami, who people are saying he's going to do something. And then you got Mayor Eric Adams, who we know screwed the entire NYPD. I'm Corey Cookies. Always keep it right now, bro. Peace.
That was great. That was great. I watched it so many times, bro. That was hilarious.
I never seen it. Someone just sent it to me. It was the first time. That was hysterical.
Oh, really? It was on. Yes, I even left a comment for him. I told him, I said, you know what? I said, hey, brother, I respect you. I don't agree with everything you say, but this video was spot on. It was awesome. That was great. Calling out Shell and Bozo, Kaz, and obviously, I guess he's not as good friends with Eric Adams as we thought. And if he is, at least he's calling it like it is.
Yeah. I got it yesterday. I saw it was titled that, so I was like, "Oh yeah, we got to talk about this." And then a bunch of people were like DMing me, like, "Yo, can you get him on? Send me the video." So I was like, "Let me reach out." So I reached out. So supposedly he's coming on Wednesday. I think that should be a good show. That should be fun.
Yeah, it was done well. That video was good.
Yeah.
Chat's gonna be on fire on that day.
It's weird to me that like he thinks like Phil Banks is a good dude and like Ed Caban's a good dude. Like I want to hear like what that is. Yeah, I mean he knows them better than us, so I'm curious. I'm curious what he's got to say. Let's show. I'm curious what he thinks about the infomercial.
The Aki way.
The Aki way.
Does anybody here eat chopped cheese? By the way, do you eat that?
Nah. If we did, we'd look like we were pregnant like that. So we don't.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I've been eating healthy too long because I'm looking at that grill and I'm like, oh my god, look at all that grease and stuff. Yeah. I'm not eating that.
That's why Kaz is starting to look like Madry. You know, give him another couple months, then he'll be wobbling like Madry.
Dude, when he called him Freaky Jeff, that was hilarious. Listen, that's why I told him to. I said, I respect you. I don't agree with everything you say, but overall, that video was great. Shell is an embarrassment. He can't even testify that he's a bozo. Madry's a bozo. So was Kaz. I don't agree with Philip Banks and Caban, but like as he said, he admitted he's friends with them. I'm curious though, what is his take on them? Would their positions be different if it wasn't Eric Adams? So maybe he's blaming Eric Adams. I mean, once he comes on here, we'll get to have a great conversation with him. But other than that, at least he's calling out bullshit.
Yeah. All right. So I'm curious what he thinks about the whole Trump Adams collab. Then you know what I mean. And someone said, "Oh, we're gonna get a lot of hate for having him on here." What else is new?
Listen, I just want to tell you, by the way, me and John were talking about yesterday. Since the day we started podcasting together, we have received nothing but hate. It went so far as them trying to paint us as racist. Bring it on. We're used to it. I love the hate. Honestly, thank you. Because you know what the hate means? It means you're watching and it means you care. Thank you.
Hysterical. Captain Chaos says Kaz is starting to look and sound like Fat Albert. Oh boy, that one hurts. That hurts me for you, Kaz. Oh, damn.
The hockey way.
The hockey way, baby.
Slap on the bacon. You saw that grease. It's like, oh my God, he's gonna eat that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Any last words before we get out of here? Marlon, you got anything before we go?
Yeah. This. I've been thinking a lot lately about this situation, and I really think the department needs to identify, Eric said it a couple months ago. They need to identify guys with military service and familiarity with firearms, and give them some sort of long gun training. And I think going forward, like paid details, I did a lot of those paid details in Manhattan, and let me tell you, what happened is exactly the worst nightmare, but it's exactly why you're there. Okay, you're not there for street crime. You're there to prevent a mass casualty event. And going forward, there needs to be more preparation for that. I think there should be guys those guys should be identified, and they should be given long gun training, and they should be assigned a long gun. We should be treated. We need to stop being the junior high school of law enforcement and become an adult police department head. If you look at the Nashville shooter incident, you saw the patrol guys get there. They grab the long guns in their trunk, and they form a stack, and they ran into the building. And the NYPD needs to get out of junior high school and go to college here. And we got to be prepared for these things, And guys should at least have a shotgun in the trunk, for God's sake. It's 2025. It's just absurd that we're still having this conversation, and this department just doesn't want to treat cops like adults. Okay, you got to treat cops like adults, and if guys aren't going to be adults in this department, they got to go. They got to go, because when people see stuff like this, they do not want to come to New York City. And again, this happened in the heart of Manhattan. If people don't want to come to New York City, we're losing out on tax revenue. We can't compete with other cities, and it's bad for the health of the city. So things have got to change, and the department has got to learn from this incident. You can't just rely on SRG or ESU. I'm sorry, okay? You got the guys in the precincts know their commands much better than ESU or SRG. And the guys who are going to get there first are probably going to be the guys in the precinct. Okay, so we got to train at least a few of them in the precinct on the squads to be prepared for these events. You can't wait until SRG comes and you already have bodies on the ground. It's too late then. Okay, so I hope Jessica is watching this, and I hope they at least start the discussion about this, because it has to be had now. It's 2025.
Well, I would say this: we need to honor the legacy of Officer Diderot Islam, who's now posthumously promoted to detective, and honor him by learning from this tragic event and the tragic murder by police officers now, especially the NYPD. If you're going to do pay detail, as I said in the past podcast, I wouldn't tell you not to do it, but if you are going to do it, don't just go there and go through the motions, because it's a couple hours pay. You need to actually go there with a plan, and now today with Google Maps, I think you could do a little assessment before you even get there. You could go on Google Maps. If it's a location that you're working that you've never been to, you could go on Google Maps and look at where the exits are, the entrances are, the location, how far back is from the sidewalk, what the situation looks like. You could really do some good homework. It will only take you a couple of minutes, and I think it's worth it. And then when you get there, let's learn from this. When you get to a location, find out if there's a fire, an emergency service plan, a safety plan, and I would say most likely, most corporate buildings, their security companies usually have some type of fire and emergency safety plan. Find out what that safety plan is. Find out if any of those security guards that are working there are former law enforcement. Find out who your point of contacts are. Take a look at your exits and entrances. And please, to my active police officers out there, not just New York City, this entire country, you are wearing a bullseye on your back. Please, always keep your back to the wall so you can see what's coming in front of you. You need to have eyes in the back of your head. I know it's easy to say. You could say, listen to this guy. He's retired. I care about you. I always made sure, John, I talk about this all the time, Marlon and Sal and Rob and Ron, we always talk about this. We always made sure that our backs are against the wall. John likes to talk about it often, and I think that's fantastic. The bladed stance, something I still do in retirement. I talk to people in a bladed stance. I talk to people in a sense of being prepared. And the same thing goes if you're working. If you're doing pay detail, you're not off duty. This idea that when you take action, you're not off duty. You are wearing a uniform, firearm. You have a target on your back. Please, situational awareness. Be safe out there. And yes, we need long weapons. These little 9mm, faced with a man with the AR-15 or an M4, you are a sitting duck. Good luck. We do need long weapons. That is so important. And hopefully we can evolve and move to that. With that being said, 2 hours and 50 minutes into it. I want to thank everyone. We love the chat. We love the friends, listeners, and even the opposition and hate. Keep it coming. Thank you so much. Have a great time this weekend. And, of course, we'll see you Monday as always. John, close us out, brother.
Yeah, not to make a long-winded rant about this, but if I'm the mayor, there's absolutely no way I'm giving guys AR-15s. I mean, I could get with Marlon's plan, like identify some people that are deserving of it, almost like a promotion, like corporals or something like that. There's absolutely no way. I mean, the most dangerous day at work, I think, in the NYPD is when you go to the shooting range. Because these people can't even shoot a 9mm gun. It's disgraceful. You can't go up and down the stairs. It's disgraceful. They can't run a mile and a half and jog a mile and a half. It's disgraceful. They can't jump over a wall. It's disgraceful. So, I mean, before I'm treating anybody like an adult, I'm hiring an adult. You know what I mean? And and I think that's the bigger picture that we're seeing here is a lot of people are taking this job for the benefits and not to do the job and not to do the work. And so I don't think that it's there yet. I really don't, unfortunately, like that's just how I see. I know I'm a little bit of a pessimist usually. But I got to be real. Like, there's no way I would hand people these AR-15s. And the other thing, when I look at it, is like the training for the people that have the AR-15s. I'm not going to get into it, but when you realize how little training ESU, SRG, and CRC are getting, there's absolutely no way they could do it because no one has time. Because in a diminished, depleted department, there's absolutely no way to get these people trained and to keep them qualified and to keep them trained, not to where it's the bare minimum. You're going twice a year. I mean, when you look at these feds, they're going once a week. Feds are so much better shooters and they rarely ever put their hands on people. You know what I mean? You're out there every day. You're doing it. What a Fed does in a month, you do every day. You know what I mean? Like you're doing 6 to 7 times a day. Excuse me. What a Fed does in a month. So it's like the training's there for them, the ammo's there for them, the funding's there for them. This is Eric Adams' police department. This is Bill de Blasio's police department. Do more with less. So we're just never going to get there with the training at the rate we're in. Before we fix the department, the first thing you have to do is win back the morale of the cops and start to be able to recruit and retain experience and promote people based on merit. Until we get there, none of what you guys saying could even possibly be implemented. None of it.
Well, John, before we close out, I know I was saying you're going to close out, but now that you brought that up, I have to push back a little bit. Only on my opinion, my anecdotal experience serving the Marine Corps. I fired sidearms, and which are 9mm pistols, 380s, you name it. I fired everything, and I've also fired shoulder stock weapons. Right, a long firearm is a shoulder stock weapon, and what is a shoulder stock weapon? It's exactly that. It's a weapon that you put in your shoulder to fire, and a long weapon is actually easier to maintain and easier to fire than it is a sidearm, much easier than your pistol. And we lack the training for the pistol. So that, to me, what that says is we need far more training for the pistol, because the long weapons are actually easier to fire, easier. They require less training.
They weren't. I'm just saying totally on responsibility. Holding it, keeping it, maintaining it. I never said that they weren't. I own long rifles myself. I shoot them and they're much easier than a pistol. I'm not talking skill level. I'm talking like, would you hand these people an AR-15 to go out on the street? I think it's more of a danger to the cops on the street and the public than it would help anybody.
Guys who are in crime, I definitely would. Special teams, I definitely would. And crime, conditions, and we used to have, at least Daytor, there used to be a conditions team. You full by, you have your crime team, or midnight, you have your crime team. So these guys should at least be the ones trained, okay? And again, I said, if guys aren't adult enough to be a cop, you shouldn't be given a gun and you shouldn't be on this job. And it's time for us to stop dancing around these issues, and the job has to be, the quality of the NYPD product has to be better. And that starts with who we're getting, who's coming in the door. Okay. If you can't look the part in the uniform, if you can't do the part in the uniform, then I'm sorry, go somewhere else. You can't be a cop here, because people are depending upon you. Okay. When stuff hits the fan, it's you they're depending upon. So we have to get to that point where we're treated like adults, and that means getting the adults into the academy and through it.
Yeah, I think so, John. I think what you're saying is the responsibility of that weapon. I thought you were talking about the actual training, because I think the training wise.
Well, they're not going to get the training, dude, is what I'm saying. One, you're not going to get the training, the responsibility of it, and look at the quad. Marlon's 100% right. I agree with you, Marlon, but like, you're not going to have anyone in the police department because they can't recruit or retain anybody.
No, they can't.
This is why they're getting people that can't look good in the uniform, can't maintain their uniform, can't shoot a 9mm. I mean, listen, is it easier to shoot a long rifle at 25 yards? Yeah, absolutely it is, than to shoot a handgun at 25 yards. But again, is it hard to shoot a handgun? I'm a city kid, bro. They put a gun in my hand. I was like, boom, boom, boom. Like I wasn't even in the military. I had no problem with that firearm. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a city kid. I wasn't out there hunting with my father. I didn't know any of that stuff. You know what I mean? And like, I had no problem with it. Is it really hard to shoot a 9mm? I don't think so.
But my point to it, Hunter says the military does not issue 380s. I didn't say the military issued 380. I'm just saying I shot them. But I was talking about stuff I learned in the military. It's funny how you have to be so accurate here. No, I didn't say the military has 380s. I know what you're saying, brother. I had a Beretta overseas, by the way. But my point is, I think people have this misideology. They look at the long firearm and they think it's so scary because it's a long gun and compared to a small gun. It's actually it's not. It's actually much easier to handle and takes less responsibility and maintenance. And it is easier to fire, and you actually would have more accuracy. And I do think, I agree with you, Marlon. I do think some specialized guys, if we can have them, should be equipped with them. But that's another problem. That's another issue. We could go down another rabbit hole, is getting the right people. And that's really where the problem is. And it's a great topic. It's a great discussion. And I do appreciate the chat. Hunter, by the way, thanks, brother.
Yeah, that was really my point. It's just we're just lacking people. We got to get like realistic solutions. And look what Adams is saying. He's talking about repealing the Second Amendment. There's actually a bill that just dropped. I think it dropped yesterday in the state assembly. I didn't get a chance to look at it yet, but it's just changing the definition of what's an assault rifle. So it's basically taking those weapons away. So I highly doubt in leftist one party New York that anybody's getting those rifles. And what they're trying to do is disarm actually people that are allowed to have firearms. And again, New York State is anti-Second Amendment. It's anti-2A. Eric Adams is anti-2A. So Mamdani's anti-2A. So that's the whole thing. So all right, people, we're going 3 hours. We just hit 3 hours. Have a great Friday, everybody. Appreciate all of you for joining. Sorry we were late today. We'll be back at you Monday. All right.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime. But nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?